Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku awakened a hidden quirk and became a vigilante? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. At the age of 4, Izuku learns a sad truth. That truth is that he's assumed to be quirkless. He has the one jointed pinky toe, but no quirk decided to show itself. It's either a really weak quirk, so weak it won't show, or it needs certain requirements for it to activate. 4 years from that day, Izuku has been trying many things to see if his quirk would activate. He's tried holding his breath, doing something in a specific way, trying to flex his hand hoping the spoon would float. Though as fate decided, it was useless. He was useless. He still tried to hang on to the dream of being a hero. If he doesn't, then what good is he? What could he possibly do if he cannot help people? He would be equal to nothing if he couldn't be a hero. It's warm outside, the sun covering almost every part of the city in Mizurufu, making the streets shine in the light. 11-year-old Izuku cannot wait to get home. When he gets home, his mom promised to make katsudon if he was well behaved. Izuku looks up at his mother, her green hair reaching down to her shoulders, her eyes locked on the path in front of them. Izuku smiles up at her, then looks back ahead. Further down, he can see Endeavor chasing someone, a villain Izuku's mind supplies. Inko and Izuku mind their own business as the pair make their way down to where their apartment is. Izuku eyes the chase, hoping to get some information for his notebooks when he gets back. The villain is carrying a bag filled with money toppling out the edges, the notes long forgotten as they run. Endeavor is drawing near as the heat from before goes from mild to scorching hot in a second. Sweat builds up on Izuku's forehead as they keep making their way forward. The villain makes a sudden stop behind Inko and holds her hostage as Endeavor fires a blast at Izuku, Inko, and the villain. Izuku screams as his skin turns to a black charred color, his bones showing through his torn and burnt skin. Izuku felt scorching pain until he didn't. It feels like he's just woken up after being well rested, like stepping into a cold shower. That refreshing feeling of being cooled down after a day on the beach. He blinks. Why can he blink? Wasn't he just burned to just a pile of ashes on the floor by Endeavor? His vision was blurry. He lifted his hand to reach his eyes as he rubbed the blurriness away. That's when he actually looked around. He's next to his mother, just walking out of the shop they were at before they got burned to a crisp. His brows furrowed as he tried to take on the situation. He's taken out of his thoughts by his mum looking worriedly at him as she asks, "Are you okay, baby?" He looks up at his mother. He then smiles and replies, "Yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry." That doesn't stop Inko from worrying about her son, but she decides to leave it this time. Looking up ahead again, she makes her way back towards their apartment. Izuku spots Endeavor again chasing the same villain with the money in the bag. Izuku's confused. Didn't this already happen? Honestly, shouldn't they be dead by now? Izuku stares at the villain, except the villain didn't turn their way like last time. Instead, the villain was head-on for a different civilian. Realization hit Izuku like a truck as he ran toward the unsuspecting bystander. He pushed the lady out of the way as the villain grabbed Izuku. Izuku struggled in their grasp, but before he could leave, Endeavor already shot his fire, aiming directly at Izuku and the villain. Being at the very front of the fire hurt way more than being just off at the side. Izuku let out a blood-curdling scream as he watched his skin turn to a scorched black, his body being cremated into embers in the wind. That's when he felt that strange feeling again. It felt like taking a breath after holding it for a long time underwater. Looking around, Izuku spotted his mother next to him again, walking out the store like nothing happened. Mom." Inko looked down to her son, worry laced on her face. "What's wrong, honey?" she asked. Izuku took a breath. "I have a bad feeling about going this way." Izuku looked down at the ground. Inko sighed, looking down at her son. Doubt evident in her eyes. "Alright, we'll go the other way, okay?" "Thanks, Mom." A few hours later, Inko was busy making katsudon for dinner. Izuku had been well behaved despite his illness. He didn't get in any trouble. Inko humming to a tune, Izuku takes his place at the couch watching the news. On screen was Endeavor and the street they were going to walk on. The screen showed the number of casualties from Endeavor's blast. 3 innocent civilians were now dead because Endeavor was too incompetent to actually do something right. Out there could be 3 families with the loss of a loved one because Endeavor failed. And the thing is, he got away with it. Spewing words like, "It's for the greater good," and "they were a necessary sacrifice." Like that isn't messed up. Buildings were still on fire and the rest of the bystanders have gotten severely injured thanks to the overall heat of the flame he produced. Heroes like that make Izuku sick to the stomach. Is this really who we trust with our lives? Who we trust to keep us safe? Who gives us hope and safety? Izuku frowns as his mother comes to sit down next to him on the sofa, the smell of the pork on the pan spreading around the room. Inko sighs as she watches the T.V. No doubt she's also disappointed in the heroes. Maybe. Inko bends down to the coffee table in front of her, grabbing the remote and changing the channel, then stands back up to the sizzling pan to finish cooking. A few minutes later Inko returns with 2 bowls of katsudon. Izuku smiles at his mother as he thanks her, taking the bowl out of her hands. "Be careful, don't burn yourself," Inko warns as she takes her place on the couch. "Don't worry, I won't," replied Izuku as he took a bite of his food. To Izuku the whole thing felt surreal, finding out his quirk at 11 years old. What joke is that? He's delighted, of course. Why wouldn't he be? He's finally got a quirk, one that can rewind time. Though the requirements are a little problematic. That doesn't matter though, he's finally got a quirk. Izuku took out a new page of his notebook, Hero Analysis for the Future No. He titles the top of the page, "My Quirk." He then starts to write what he knows about the newfound quirk. Well, for starters, he knows he needs to potentially die for it to work, and the results end up with him a few moments back before that death. When he rewinds, nobody else seems to realize, or take notice. Having a quirk, he can't prove nice. Well, it'd be for the best anyway if no one knew, right? Being quirkless for his whole life and coming up with a quirk he can't even prove, he may just look crazy or desperate. So telling anyone is off limits. There's also the factor on just how far back he can go. He's going to have to test it sooner or later. Grinning, Izuku closes his notebook and goes to his computer on his desk. He decides to search if there's anyone out there with a quirk like his. He types out his question onto the search engine but receives 0 results. He didn't think about just how serious this situation is. If anyone found out, they could rat him out to the police and people might as well lock him up and do tests on him because of his quirk. That thought scares him, so he's going to make sure he doesn't tell anyone. The next day is when he starts going to his first year in middle school. It's either everyone is going to hate him for being quirkless or they just won't care. Izuku doubts it's the latter. The next morning, Izuku woke up to his alarm blaring. Groaning, he sticks his arm out and manages to finally stop the alarm. Sighing, Izuku gets up and walks over to his closet. Picking out his uniform, he gets dressed and walks over to where his bag is. Lifting it up from the floor, he walks out of his room and heads to the bathroom. He locks the door as he goes to stand in front of the mirror, his unkempt green hair going all over the place. He took the brush from the shelf on the wall and tried to brush his hair, but it was a waste of time as his hair just never seemed to flatten out. Giving up on that, he picks up his toothbrush and brushes his teeth. Once he was done, he left the bathroom and walked into the living room. His mother wasn't awake yet, so he tried to keep his steps quiet as he went to get some breakfast. Picking out some waffles on the counter, he heads for the front door and leaves the apartment. On the way to school, Izuku decides to leave the waffles in his bag for later as you never know what could happen during the day. 20 minutes later, Izuku arrives at the front gates of Aldera Middle School. Swallowing the lump in his throat, he walks through the front door and heads to his classroom. He opens the door and is greeted with a classroom of unknown people other than Kaken and his friends. Keeping his head down and trying not to attract attention, Izuku settles on a desk at the back. "Hey, green hair!" someone called. Izuku looked up to see someone standing over him at his desk. "Yes." And was that the wrong thing to say? The boy looked furious as he dragged more attention to them. "That's my seat you're sitting in. Didn't you see the seating plan?" Realization hit Izuku like getting hit with a ball at the back of your head unexpectedly during dodgeball. Or was that just him? "Oh, so sorry." Izuku stood up and walked back to the front to see the so-called seating plan. Turns out that was just a fluke, as there was no sheet of paper with a seating plan. What a joke. Izuku is taken out of his thoughts by laughter ringing around the classroom. Even Kaken looked smug sitting on top of his desk. Izuku looked around the classroom. The few seats left were around the middle of the classroom. Just perfect. Walking to the middle desk, he sets his stuff down and gets ready for class. He bets that Kaken already told everyone about his quirklessness, so another 3 years of being friendless. What a great start of the year, wouldn't you agree? The end of school came around. The first thing they did was introduce themselves. Everyone stood up and said their name and quirk. When it came down to Izuku though, he was completely ignored and the next person went in his place. At least at that time the attention was off of him, so that's a plus. He really wishes he could do something about it, but he doesn't want anything on his record if he wants to get to UA. Though he doubts it's going to stay clean for long. Making it just out the gate, he gets pulled back and shoved on the wall. Kaken's angry face is right in his face. Kaken just took that personally as he screamed at Izuku about how he was looking down on him and that he was just a quirkless loser. The norm. So sorry Kaken, but I got to get home now. Izuku prays to the gods above that he can go home just this once without a new injury. Turns out the gods like to watch him suffer too. One moment he was being pinned to the wall by Katsuki, the next being shoved in an empty dumpster at the back of the school. Izuku tried to pry open the lid, but it was impossible. It was either he was just so weak or they tied down the lid so he wouldn't be able to open it unless someone let him out. What a nice first day. Sitting now in the corner of the bin, he tries to get at least some sort of comfort as he probably won't be let out in another hour or so. It was completely pitch black in there apart from the little rays of light coming from the edges of the lid, barely anything to light the place up. Izuku started counting from 1 to the highest number he could without messing up. If he did, he'd just start again. It's just something to stop his boredom getting to him and also to pass time. What seems like hours being locked in the bin, someone finally decided to open the lid. Looking up and squinting at the sudden light, Kaken looked at him with a scowl on his face. Well, come on, nerd. Are you coming out or not? Being taken out of his thoughts, Izuku climbed out and he thanked Katsuki. Don't thank me, stupid Deku. I just don't want Andy sending out a search party for your quirkless butt. Izuku dusted off his uniform as he headed back home. Surely his mother would get him in trouble for staying out this late. Hurrying home, he opened the door to his mother already waiting at the door. She looked mad. Where have you been? I've been worried sick, you know? Wondering if you were even going to show up. Is it me? Is it my fault you don't want to be here? I've been nothing but kind to you ever since you were diagnosed with your illness, and this is the treatment I get. Before Izuku could even retaliate, it wasn't her fault. He was shoved in his room. You stay in there and think about your actions. How it could affect me. She slammed the door shut, and an audible click was heard indicating his room was locked from the outside. Sighing, Izuku set down his bag and changed into his pajamas. It's likely he won't be let out until tomorrow morning. Suddenly remembering what happened the day before, Izuku smiled as he decided to write more analysis on his quirk. Izuku finalized on naming his quirk Reiteration, meaning to do or say something again or many times. He thought it fit, considering the nature of his quirk. To be fair, he hasn't tried to use his quirk again with the lingering fear of not being able to wake up again, if this all was just some hallucination or wishful thinking. Shaking his head, Izuku went to his computer and searched up quick ways to die. And that isn't concerning for an 11-year-old. He got some results, the first thing coming up with suicide help. He isn't suicidal. He just wants to test things out. Yeah, nothing serious. Scrolling down, he finds some useful information. The first thing that showed up on the list was suffocation. Izuku guesses he could try that. He just doesn't have the right materials for it at the moment. Finishing up his analysis, he puts it away on his stack of his other 9 notebooks. Now that he's finished with his analysis for the time being, Izuku can't help but feel a little bored. Being cooped up in his room all day isn't really entertaining. He decides to take a little walk. Inko doesn't need to know. He just needs to climb out of his window and be back before Inko even realizes he ever left. Walking up to his window, he slides it open and sits on the windowsill. He jumps from his place on the window onto the fire escape of the apartment and goes up to the roof. Though it's not much different being in his room than just sitting on his roof, but at least out there he has something to distract himself with. Like the wind in his messy hair, or the occasional person walking down the street paying no mind to him, or how the sky progressively gets darker each passing hour. It's just calming, being able to relax in the most unlikely places Izuku ever would have thought. Izuku decides it's a good time to test out his quirk. As long as he falls head first, it's a guaranteed death, right? Being 4 stories up. Izuku wouldn't know, he hasn't tried it before. He didn't do any research either. Coming with the conclusion that he should just try it, he stands up and he lets himself fall head first. The last thing he hears was a dignifying crack. That weird calming sensation is happening again. One time his vision was all black before slowly regaining consciousness and awareness. Looking around, he finds himself sitting on the edge of his apartment building, the sky in orange-pink color as the sun sets. He doesn't actually know how far back he went. Well, at least he knows for certain he actually has a quirk instead of his mind becoming desperate. Izuku just sits there for a while, sky turning black with stars illuminating the sky. Taking in a breath and exhaling, a type of fog appears as he exhales. Most likely from the cold. Deciding it was finally time to get back to his room, he attempts to stand up only to falter as he hears a pair of footsteps on the roof behind him. "What are you doing up here, kid?" the unknown person asked him. Izuku turns around to see who's speaking. The person is wearing all black with laced-up boots and wearing a gray scarf around his neck. Their hair is long and black and they're wearing vibrant yellow goggles. Realizing who the person is, he immediately starts to internally fanboy. Right there behind him was the one and only Eraserhead. Though the circumstances are less than preferable, he's still there in the flesh. He's startled out of his thoughts by another question, cursing to himself for being quiet too long. I just like the view." Izuku turns his head back around to look away from the hero, hoping it hides his ever-growing embarrassment. "It's nice, isn't it?" he replies. Izuku hears more footsteps as the hero sits down a good space away from him, but close enough he could reach out and catch him if he falls. "Why yeah?" Izuku settles on replying. "What's your name, kid?" "Why?" Eraserhead looks at him and Izuku has the feeling he said something wrong. "So I can stop dubbing you kid in my head." "That makes sense," Izuku guesses. "You can call me Zu." He was going to say Deku, as it's the only name he was really called by his peers, but he decided against it. "Zuha? So how old are you, exactly?" Eraser asks. Izuku's getting the feeling there's more to these questions than just questions. "I am 56 this year," Izuku replies sarcastically. "Holy flip, why did I say that? Now he's going to hate me for being snarky. I should have just kept my mouth shut. Geez, I'm an idiot. Yeah, sure, don't tell me if you don't want to." Izuku was eternally grateful he wasn't mumbling in front of the hero. Gosh, that would just be embarrassing. Or well, he doesn't think he was mumbling. The hero didn't call him out for it if he was. "I was just about to head home. Sorry for the bother." Izuku stood up as Eraserhead tenses, like he's just about to fall any second. That's when it hits him. Eraser thought he was going to jump. Not like he didn't already, but still. "Let me take you home, is it far?" Izuku had to do a double take as he processed what the hero just asked. He wants to walk him home? That would be a problem if he knows where he lives. Why? He doesn't know. And no, it's okay, it's not far from here. Thanks for the offer though." Izuku then starts the walk for the fire escape as he climbs all the way down, only to be greeted by the hero again at the mouth of the alley. "It was nice talking to you. But I really have got to go now." Izuku tried to slip past Eraser, but was stopped when a hand went on his shoulder. Suppressing the urge to flinch, he turned back around to face the hero. "Let me walk you home. It's late and it's dangerous in the dark." Not knowing how to tell the hero his house is legit right there, he decides just to walk around aimlessly with the hero following not far behind. He doesn't know how to get out of the situation. Does he just sprint off the nearest roof and reset before it's too late, or come clean to the hero and have him hate him forever, or keep walking around until the hero gets bored and leaves to actually do something important instead of following a kid home? The last option seems like the best, but it's probably wishful thinking. Izuku stopped walking and turned to Eraserhead. I'm okay here. Thank you. Right? I hope I don't see you out this late again. Yes, Mr. Eraserhead, sir, replied Izuku, bowing down slightly. Just Eraserhead's fine. Stay safe. Eraserhead turned around and started walking the other way. Once he was out of sight, Izuku went to the nearest alley with a fire escape and climbed up it. The building was 5 stories high. Izuku went to the edge and jumped head first, letting blackness take over him. Izuku woke back up sitting on his apartment's roof, the sky a dark blue color with stars littering the sky. Figuring now was the time to head back, Izuku stood up and entered his room through the fire escape window. He changed into his pajamas and went to bed, ready for another day off Helg's school. Izuku thinks the day went mildly compared to the other days. No, really. The only things that happened were being tripped in the hall, his food being knocked out of his hands onto the floor and being pushed from the top of the stairs and landing wrongly on his ankle, which was completely on Izuku for not falling right. But other than that, the day went well. At least he isn't locked in the bin again today. Izuku was on the way home when he heard a scream somewhere in the distance. He really didn't need any other distractions. He was already late as it is, with his ankle slowing him down. He tried to mind his own business, thinking a hero will go save them. That was until he heard them scream again. Why weren't they being saved? Are there no heroes nearby? Deciding Izuku should do something, he starts running in the direction of the scream, around 5 minutes too long until he arrives at the scene. Blood everywhere, dismembered body parts laying around all over the alley. Izuku wanted to puke. Just what happened? Everywhere he looks is just blood, blood, finger, more blood, arm, and more blood. He couldn't look. He doesn't want to look, but his eyes won't pry away from the scene. Breathing uneven and heavy, someone walks out of the alley. He's tall, wearing a suit and covered in blood. His hair a dark brown and his vibrant yellow eyes peering down at Izuku at the entrance of the alley. Izuku feels all the air being blown out of his body, not like he had much to begin with anyways. The man's eyes glow a bright yellow, and Izuku can't breathe. He tries and tries, but it's impossible. Can't have any witnesses now, can we? The man smirked. That was the last thing Izuku saw as he greeted the darkness with open arms. Izuku gasps as he regains awareness. He looks around frantically, trying to get a grasp on where he's at. He notices a familiar sign. He takes a breath as he tries to figure out where he went to get to that alley. That's when a familiar scream erupts around the place and Izuku dashes to them, hoping he's not too late. Izuku makes it to the alley, still too slow for his liking as his ankle acted up halfway there. He peers into the alley to see a girl sitting on the floor with her back to the wall, looking up in fear to whoever is in front of her. Please. I'll have it by next week, they're low on supply. You know that, the girl shrieked. That's when Izuku realizes just how lost he is in the situation. What's low on supply? What is coming in by next week? Have they met before? Seeing the current situation, it seems likely they know each other. You know, my boss is picky about these things being on time. They don't care if they're low or not, just get the merchandise and you leave with the money. That was the deal. The man raised an eyebrow. I'm sorry. I swear. Just please don't kill me. The girl looked absolutely horrified. It looked like she just stopped breathing. Izuku looked up to the man from his place behind the wall in a crouch. His eyes are glowing. It must be his Quirk. Hey. Izuku stood up and showed himself, standing at the entrance of the alley. The man in question looked at him, eyes no longer glowing as the girl gasped for air. What do you want, child? I have business to deal with. He asks, gesturing with his eyes at the girl on the floor sobbing. I want you to stop. Izuku honestly wants to die from embarrassment at how weak that sounded. Like hell he's going to stop cause some kid asked him to. Turns out the man thinks so too as he puffs out a laugh. I don't have time for this. Leave, child, this is none of your concern. The man turned away looking at the lady again, his eyes glowing once again. He's not even thinking about what Izuku would do. Not even seeing him as a threat. Yusuke takes the man's distraction on the lady as a time to pounce. He starts running right at the man, but stops when the man's attention is put back on him. He can't breathe, he can't move, he can only look into the man's eyes. I warned you, did I not? The man asks. All Izuku can see now is stars dancing in the corner of his eyes as he falls to the ground. Greeting death like the first time around. Izuku wheezes as he is pulled back out of the darkness. Looking around, he realizes he's where he was last time around. Wasting no time, he sprints in the direction of where he knows where they'll be. He arrives just in the nick of time as he hears the scream right up front. He peers into the alley to see the man chopping off one of her fingers from her hand and tossing it to the side. How he didn't notice it in the last run. He has no idea. The girl is crying as tears run down her face. The man grimaces in disgust as he backs up a bit. Now where is the merchandise? The man asks, clearly annoyed as he crosses his arms over his chest. Please. I'll have it by next week, they're low on supply. You know that. She replied for a second time. Izuku still has no answers from his previous questions, leaving him more dazzled in confusion. You know my boss is picky about these things being on time. They don't care if they're low or not, just get the merchandise and you leave with the money. That was the deal. The man raised an eyebrow once again, exactly like last time. I'm sorry. I swear. Just please don't kill me. Izuku is startled out by his thoughts as he darts between the man and the girl, knocking off his eye contact with her. If his quirk relies on sight, if he can't see his victim, then they're unable to be affected, right? Kind of like Eraserhead, Izuku thought distantly. Izuku hears the girl heaving for her breath as Izuku's eyes remain on the ground. He's noticed they need eye contact for his quirk to work, so if he just doesn't look at him, he'll be fine. As fine as he can be anyway. What are you doing here, child? The man asks, seemingly unbothered. I won't let you hurt her. The man huffs as he straightens out. Look at me, child. Izuku shakes his head, heart pounding in his chest. The man sighs and he reaches down for his chin and forcefully lifts his head too. Look at him. You do as you're told. I'm not one for killing children, but you can be an exception for delaying my plans. Izuku and the man make eye contact and Izuku can't breathe again. His eyes widened as he tries to move, to look away. In the corner of his eye, he sees the girl run away out the alley. Good for her, he guesses. That moment of distraction, the man takes his eyes off of Izuku and he takes that chance to kick him in the gut with all his might, seemingly forgetting his sprained ankle he got not so long ago. Izuku hisses in pain as the man doubles over, letting off of his chin to bring his hand to his stomach. You brat! The man lowers his hand to his belt and takes out a gun. Just as he pointed it at Izuku's head, the gun was snatched off of his palm by a gray-colored scarf. Izuku lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding, as the man was bound up in Eraserhead's scarf. Eraserhead's hair is raised as a red glow is just barely visible from behind his goggles, an indicator on when he's using his quirk. Izuku is confused. Isn't Eraserhead's patrol later at night? He looks up and sees a contrast of pinks and oranges. He wasn't outside that long, was he? Izuku looks back around to see the villain tied up and knocked out, Eraserhead standing over him on the phone. Most likely calling the police. He is a hero after all. Around 3 minutes later, Izuku walks to the entrance of the alley. Eraserhead looks at Izuku and curses into the phone. Were you in the alley with this man? Eraserhead asks. Izuku's brows furrow. Shouldn't he already know that? He wasn't exactly hiding. Either way, Izuku nods. Unsure his voice would actually come out comprehensible. Eraserhead sighs as he makes his way toward Izuku. Izuku subconsciously steps back and Eraserhead stops his ascent. Are you hurt? He asks. Izuku shakes his head but remembers his sprained ankle and nods. He wasn't hurt by the man. Just killed twice. But he came back, so it doesn't count. Where are you hurt? Izuku points to his ankle. It's twisted in an awkward angle, so he takes it so that it's no longer sprained but the condition is worse. Can you speak? Izuku can. But can't. What an awkward situation. Izuku settles on shaking his head as he cannot trust his voice at this moment. He'd be a stuttering mess. Izuku is honestly quite surprised he isn't crying at this moment. Normally when something good or bad happens the tears just fall. Well, thank God for that, as he could not handle the embarrassment of crying in front of the hero. It looked like Eraserhead was about to ask another question, but was interrupted by the sound of sirens in the distance progressively getting louder the closer they got. Izuku is thankful the sirens directed Eraserhead's attention from him to the general direction they're sounding in. Roughly a minute later, a few police cars rounded up to the front of the alley. The police officers walked up to Eraserhead and took the villain and locked him in the back of their car. Izuku looks around, mostly batting eyes towards Eraserhead and trying to get snippets from his conversations, but is unable to hear anything over the sound of sirens. That's when Izuku saw Eraserhead point a thumb over at Izuku, still facing the officers as they turned their heads slightly to look at him. Izuku takes another step back and winces as he steps on his bad foot. The officers frown as one of them walks towards Izuku and Eraserhead and the other officer watches. Izuku takes Eraserhead as one of the heroes who aren't really good at helping civilians. The officer in front of him has a cat mutation quirk. He's a ginger cat and he has a little bell over his uniform. The sight makes him smile slightly. He always thought cats were cute. "I'm Officer Sansa Tamakawa. Is it alright if we get that ankle of yours checked out?" Sansa pointed over to where his foot is twisted and off the ground. Izuku nods as Sansa smiles. "That's good. You can sit down on the ground while we check it out, okay?" Izuku nods again and starts lowering himself to the ground, keeping his leg lifted. Once on the ground, Sansa comes closer and starts to look at the injury. It'll be hard to take off his shoes and socks without aggravating his ankle further. Just from looking at it though, you could see his ankle swelling. It's not like Izuku can't feel the pain, it hurts. But it's honestly not that bad. Izuku starts to feel a headache forming. Can't this just be over already? What do people do in these situations anyway? Izuku starts to see stars in his vision and then he blacks out. When Izuku wakes up, he realizes he isn't somewhere he recognizes. He sits up from the yellow couch as he takes his surroundings. There's a door to the right of Izuku with a bookshelf and a small table with a lamp on it. On Izuku's left is a desk with paper all over it. There's a window on the left wall of the room. Trying to remember what happened and how he got there, the events of what he guessed last night, hit him like a flick to his forehead. So, what now? While overthinking his current situation, Izuku didn't realize the door opened, revealing the detective who was at the scene yesterday. "Oh good, you're awake. You gave us all a scare there," Tsukachi chuckled, making his way over to his desk and taking a seat behind it. Izuku looks up to him, confusion hinted at on his face. "Who are you?" Tsukachi looked at Izuku, slight surprise taking over his features. Izuku then redirects his vision to the floor. "I'm Detective Tsukachi of Mizudafu Police Force. May I ask what's your name?" Tsukachi smiled. My name is Izuku Midoriya." Izuku looked at his ankle, which had been wrapped in gauze. Someone probably used their quirk on him to speed the process of healing. "Nice to meet you, Midoriya. Can you tell me how old you are?" Izuku looked up to face the detective. "I am 11. "Right, may I ask what you were doing in that alley?" Sure. I wasn't actually in the alley to begin with. I was walking home when I heard someone scream. I decided to, run in their direction. And, I came across that man threatening that woman about some sort of merchandise? Something about it being in low supply. I was hiding behind the wall. It was probably a good idea to mention things that happened in this timeline. Izuku thought. The girl was asking the man not to kill her. And the M-man's eyes glowed a brighter yellow and the girl suddenly wasn't breathing. I couldn't really see that well, but she looked terrified. I guess the man's quirk relied on sight. Kind of like Eraserhead's quirk if you think about it. But anyways, I ran between the girl and the man. Not my best choice. But yeah. His eyes toned back down to a lower yellow and the girl started breathing again. And I kicked him in the stomach with my foot, hence worsening my already sprained ankle, and then Eraserhead swooshed in. There was a silence dominating the room. And now we're here. Izuku finished. Right. Tsukachi furrowed his brows. His quirk was acting up, His explanation came out 100% true and 100% false. If you don't mind me asking, what's your quirk? Tsukachi asked. Oh, I'm quirkless. If he has a quirk he can't prove, he may as well be quirkless, right? Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. My quirk is lie detector. I can detect if someone is lying or telling the truth. During your explanation my quirk came up with 100% true and 100% false, which has never happened before. Do you by any chance know why? A lie detector quirk? That's so cool. But also very tricky. Does it work on half-truths? Or is it based on what the person really believes? And no. It came out more as a question instead of an actual statement. Alright, can you tell me why you ran straight to a possible murder scene instead of contacting the police? Oh, well, even if I did they would have been too late. That doesn't explain why you ran straight to the scene, on a sprained ankle no less. I just had to do something. There wasn't anyone else there to help. Tsukachi looked at Izuku with a calculating gaze which made Izuku a tad uncomfortable. Shifting in his place on the couch, Izuku looks outside the window. It was still dark outside, the streets being illuminated by the street lights. I'm going to see if I can get in touch with your parents, is that all right? Izuku dragged his attention back to the detective. Sure. It's just my mom. Tsukachi nodded as he typed on his computer. A few minutes later on the phone with who Izuku guesses is his mother. Roughly around 10 minutes later, Izuku heard from behind the door of his mother's crying. Izuku grimaces as Tsukachi opens the door and closes it again. Izuku looks down to the ground, guilty. It's his fault she's crying after all. He should have just left it. Minded his own business. Yet, Izuku felt a swirl of pride in himself. He managed to save someone, even at the expense of his ankle. If he'd been a moment later, he knows what the outcome would have been. I'm sorry for worrying you, Izuku patted his mother's back as she sobbed into his shoulder. You know how I worry. Especially with your illness, you're weaker than the rest of the kids and need to be protected. Don't go off running to fights again, you hear me? Izuku had to take a breath before speaking. He loves his mom. He really does. It's just when she gets too emotional and assumes he's weaker than everyone else because he doesn't have a quirk. Why, I hear you. I'm sorry, Mom. Inko stops crying on Izuku's shoulder and lets him go. Taking a tissue from her bag, Inko turned to Tsukachi. I'm so sorry for my son's behavior. I try to keep him in line because of his illness. But he just never seems to listen. Tsukachi looked skeptical. What illness exactly? Oh, he didn't tell you? He's quirkless. You know that doesn't mean he's ill. Right. What do you mean? Of course he is, he doesn't have a quirk. So there must be something wrong with him. I think we're done here, good night, detective. Inko turned away and grabbed Izuku by the wrist and walked out the doors. Izuku and his mom arrived at their taxi as Inko took the passenger seat and Izuku took the back seat on the left side. The engine started as the scenery moved behind as Izuku looked out the window. Another painful 10 minutes later, Inko and Izuku made it to their apartment. Inko was eerily silent, making Izuku nervous as he walked into the apartment behind his mother. Pack your things, Inko said suddenly, turning around and facing Izuku with a scowl on her face. What? Izuku replied, confused. I said pack your things, you're leaving. Izuku's eyes widened. What does she mean, I'm leaving? I don't want to repeat myself, screamed Inko, hastily pointing to Izuku's room door. Izuku took that as a sign to get moving, so he ran over to his room and headed straight for his bag. Emptying out its contents, he moved over to the wardrobe and grabbed clothing he thought he'd need. Looking behind his desk, he grabbed a tin full of saved money. He had around 30,000 yen. Stuffing it in his bag, he walked back into the hall. His mother was still standing there, hands crossed in front of her chest. I gave you chance after chance to get your behavior straight. But you just never seem to learn. This is the only option. You're leaving, I don't care where, you just don't come back. Tears pricked at the back of his eyes, but he couldn't cry. This was bound to happen sooner or later, he should have just minded his own business. Maybe then he wouldn't feel this overwhelming feeling of guilt. Guilt because he couldn't be the son she wanted. He was a mistake, A stupid, useless Deku. Leave. And Izuku left, maybe looking back once or twice to see if she would change her mind. Though Inko never turned to him once. Once he settled in a random alleyway, he set his things down and curled in on himself. What am I supposed to do now? A sob raised up in his throat as he cried himself to sleep on the dirty concrete, awaiting the next day to be a little less chaotic. Izuku woke up to a sore back and irritated eyes from crying. Looking around, he finds himself still in that alley from last night. Sighing, he sits up and stretches, his back making a satisfying crack as he bends backwards. Izuku then bends down and grabs his packed bag and walks out of the alley to God knows where. Around 20 minutes later, Izuku came across a beach. A very dirty beach. Trash stacked up around 20 foot tall, its tower of junk looming over the beach's coastline, making the area darker as the sun on the opposite side caused its shadows. The smell was anything but divine. It was absolutely putrid. Grimacing, Izuku makes his way down to the covered sand, hoping to find the other end of the seemingly never-ending piles of garbage. Finally making it to the other side of the beach, Izuku eyes a partially stable washing machine. Walking over to it, Izuku lifts himself up on the rusting and molding machine as he looks out over the ocean. The dark blue water glistened in the light of the sun, just barely risen. Taking a regretful breath through the nose, he breathes a sigh from the mouth and starts planning. Shoyuda Aizawa just arrived back at his apartment after 6 long hours of patrol. He came back later than he normally would, so as he got home his husband Hizashi was already awake and starting breakfast. Aizawa sighed as he greeted his husband and went straight for the bedroom, hoping to get at least 5 minutes of sleep before he starts teaching. Not even 2 minutes later is Shoyuda being woken up by his phone ringing on the bedside table. Groaning, he reaches out for his phone as he reads his notification. Zashi, Sho, I know you're probably really tired. But you need to eat something. So come out here and eat breakfast that isn't jelly pouches. Sighing, Aizawa hauls himself off the bed and walks into the living room where Hizashi is eating from his own plate as another is placed on the table. Shoyuda is glad Hizashi cares about him enough to make him eat, but that doesn't mean he can wake him up from his fully deserved sleep. Sleep is rare, you know? Sitting down at the table, he picks up his plate as he thanks his husband. After finishing breakfast, Shoyuda makes his way back to bed as Hizashi changes into his hero costume ready for a new day. I'm leaving now, Sho. I'll see you later. The front door closes audibly and Shoyuda supposes it's time to get ready to go to UA. Just because he doesn't have a class anymore doesn't mean there isn't any paperwork to be done. Just laying down on the bed, for around 10 minutes. Shoyuda finally gets up and takes a shower, ridding of all the dirt and grime from his patrol that night. He changed into another one of his hero uniforms and made it to UA just as the bell rang. Shoyuda made his way to the empty teacher's lounge, standing in front of the coffee machine as it whirls to life, pouring a cup for himself. Now, time for paperwork. That DMN nerd is really getting on his nerves. Who does he think he is skipping school? He's already an idiot as it is. That stupid Deku can go rot wherever he is, it's not like he cares. Though it was kinda strange that Deku skipped school, he never misses it. Always muttering in the stalker books like the nerd he is. Honestly, what's with him? He's just a quirkless loser who won't be anything in life. Whatever, it's not his problem. But Kugu, wait up. Some extra called behind him. Katsuki turned around with a glare. What do you want, extra? Katsuki asked, still glaring daggers. Geez, Bakugu. Calm down, will ya? Let's go to the arcade, maybe get some ladies? The extra replied. No, F off. I'm busy. Katsuki turned and walked away, but got stopped by someone grabbing his shoulder. But Baku dash. I said F off. Katsuki yelled, pushing the DMN extra away. DMN, Bakugu. He said, lifting his arms in a way to symbolize surrendering. I'll get out of your hair then. Katsuki, ched. In response, stupid extras getting in his way. He's going to be the #1 hero, he doesn't need pointless interactions with pointless friends. At the word friend, Katsuki immediately thought of Izuku, making him grumble under his breath that he isn't his friend. Izuku has thought out a plan. It wasn't the best per se, but it was something. Izuku was to find a job who would let him work, despite his age. And Quirk? He really didn't want to depend on stealing to feed himself. Currently he has around 30,000 yen, which is more than enough to last him around a month or two depending on how he spends it. This situation really was so sudden. Why would Imo-inko do that? She must know it wasn't Izuku's fault. Right? What if she knew but just blamed it on his illness? It was a decent excuse, but he was getting older and more mature. She must know at least something. No point dwelling on the past after all. Izuku still has a long way to go. The first thing Izuku has on his list is finding someplace safe to stay, which is no easy feat when you're homeless and 11 years old with being quirkless to top it all off. So Izuku wanders the streets, looking for any abandoned buildings he can camp out at until he has to move again. Looking through broken windows with moss and vines growing, Izuku finds the perfect place. It may not be the safest of all places, but it has 4 walls and a roof, with a second floor, so really it's a free real estate. When you first walk in is a long corridor, on the right is the rickety and unstable staircase, and on the left is a door, and at the end of the corridor is another door. On the floor is a stained, red carpet with a black outline. The walls are a pale, rotting yellow. Not very appealing. Going to the first door on the right, the inside is a living room. There is a ripped-up couch in the middle of the room with a small fireplace in the corner. The walls are an earthly green with chips of paint clipping off the walls. There is a bookshelf behind the couch with dust-collected books on the shelves, waking up to the bookshelf. Izuku picks out a book from the collection, reading the title, The King's Throne. Shrugging, Izuku places the book back and walks out to the hall and walks to the door at the end of the corridor. Opening the squeaky door that makes Izuku cringe, he walks into the kitchen and dining room. The kitchen on the left and a table with broken chairs on the right. The building has no electricity, so maybe he could get some generator? There's also no heating around the place, but he has the fireplace in the living room for warmth when he needs it. The kitchen is full of dust, and Izuku sneezes just from the sheer amount. There's a fridge and an oven with empty counters, though the cabinets have a few bowls chipped. The dining table is stable enough, though the chairs could be fixed. Izuku adds that mentally to his list of things to do. There isn't really anything interesting enough to investigate apart from the pictures hanging from the wall. Looking at it, he sees it's a family photo with presumably the mother being ripped off, showing only the son and father. The father has short white hair with a slim face and red eyes. He's wearing a navy blue suit with a white-collared shirt. The son also had white hair, way longer than the father's. He's skinnier and he's wearing a blue denim jacket. He has bright green eyes, most likely from the mysterious mother. Deciding to explore the upstairs of the house, Izuku climbs the creaking stairs and is met with another hallway. Going through the first door Izuku sees, he comes across a room with a bed frame tucked into the right corner, a broken window on its left, with an old-looking desk with empty shelves. Walking up to the desk, he opens up the desk drawer, and on the inside is a letter with the name, Yoichi, written on the front in cursive. The letter was already opened, as the top has been ripped, and Izuku takes out the papers in the envelope. Izuku feels like this is an invasion of privacy, though if it was important, wouldn't the person who once lived here take it? Opening the letter, he reads the date it was written. 05/06/2014. 2014. This was written just over 100 years ago? The last time Izuku checked it was intrigued to see what the letter has written in it. Izuku reads the letter. Dear Yoi, I am writing to you to tell you I've always loved you. You were my brother, of course, so why wouldn't I? I'm sorry for how things have gone between us, though I can't stop what I've started. I wish you could see things how I see it. To get divine wine one must trample the grapes, right? In the end, we're brothers. So shouldn't we be working together? Why didn't you? I was doing it for the greater good, though you believe it was evil. I was hurt, betrayed by my own flesh and blood. So this is goodbye, Yoichi. From your brother, Shigaraki. People 100 years ago were so poetic, Izuku thought. Shame the name was scribbled out, though he's got a last name now. Shigaraki. And what did he do that his brother didn't agree to? Oh well, it's in the past now, so Izuku has nothing to worry about. Folding the latter back into its envelope, Yusuke placed it back into the drawer and went to explore the rest of the building. There is only one more room on the opposite side of the bedroom's door. Opening the door, Izuku was met with a simple bathroom. Toilet, shower and sink. Izuku goes to turn on the tap and apparently there's working water here. That's at least one good thing. After finding a decent place to stay, Izuku is sitting on the dirty couch and brainstorming places to get a job. He could ask places if they need an extra hand, like in cafes or the shop. It's pretty dark out right now, bright stars littering the black sky. Izuku reaches down to his bag and finds he's low on food he's saved. Taking out 2,000 yen, Izuku leaves the building to the nearest 24-hour store. Walking through the front door, Izuku goes down the aisles and snags some long-lasting chips and nutrition bars. Going to the freezers, Izuku grabs a few bottles of water and goes to line up at the counter. While waiting in line, someone with a mask walks in and they decided now was a good time to rob the place of all times. They had a gun and were pointing it straight at the cashier's head, demanding for all their money. This is fine. Izuku concludes. The heroes will come. Right? You're taking too long. Hurry up or I'll blow your head in. Screamed the thug, as the cashier shakes in fear as they hastily put the money on the counter for the man. Here you are. Please don't kill me. The heroes are taking so long. Are there even any on patrol around here? You took too long, plus this isn't even much. You're probably stalling, aren't you? The cashier's eyes widened as they immediately tried to come up with useless excuses. The thug wasn't having any of it as he shot the gun, the bullet going straight through their head. Izuku took off towards the thug. How dare they shoot them? Why didn't I do anything? Why did I just stand there? Izuku jumps onto the man, making him unbalanced, but he doesn't fall over. You brat, get off me, he screamed, pushing Izuku onto the floor and shooting him through the head. It burns. It burns. It burns, it burns, it burns, it burns, it burns. And Izuku's awake. When did he close his eyes? He's in the shop, still in the aisle. Izuku places everything he's got on the floor and decides to wait at the door, ignoring the eyes on him. The familiar figure with the mask walks in and trips over Izuku's outstretched foot, slamming into the floor of the shop. Once he's on the ground, Izuku reaches into the man's pocket to grab the gun, ripping it out of its grip. The majority of the people watching gasp as Izuku shows the gun in his hands, hanging limply at Izuku's side facing the floor. The thug then starts to groan and regain awareness. Huh. The man looks around from his place on the floor, finally settling on Izuku and his gun in his hand. Fing kid. Izuku doesn't let him get back up as he chops his pressure point and the man goes limp. Now Izuku knows his mistake. He took the man down before he even did anything. If he goes to the police now, they'd probably let him back out and Izuku would get questioned, as it looks like he just knocked him out for no reason at first. Though he is carrying a gun, and that's illegal, isn't it? Either way, he doesn't want to be in the wrath of the police again, so he flees the shop and back to his house, deciding he'll go buy food the next day. Tsukachi is sitting at his desk in his office going over his most recent case. The night before there was an attempted robbery apparently, though the cameras show nothing incriminating until after the boy revealed a gun from his pocket. Said boy just walked up to the store's door and right when the man walked in, got tripped over. There are many questions that Tsukachi doesn't know the answers to. Like how he knew the man had a gun in the first place. Now said man got arrested after a civilian called the police, though they can't press any charges apart from carrying a gun illegally. So Tsukachi has no choice but to let him off with a fine or two. Now since that's over and done with, we still have no clue who the boy is. All we know is that he has green hair and was wearing an all-might hoodie with black jeans. Tsukachi can't help the feeling that he knows the boy from somewhere, just he doesn't know where. Either way, Tsukachi had other things to do, like trying to figure out where Sakata Jun went. Izuku is currently situated at Dagoba Beach, looking through the trash for anything useful. Izuku found some useful things, like a half-destroyed flip phone that he could easily fix with the right pieces. Which is why he's also looking for small parts in the sand, or taking apart machines and taking their pieces. Now, he has a fully working flip phone which occasionally flickers on and off. Though Izuku guesses it's from all the different parts in it. As Izuku walks through the piles of rubbish, he notices a man with blonde hair, electric blue eyes and a sunken face looking out over the ocean, a frown evident on his face. Sir? Izuku asks, walking up to the man. The man startled and faced Izuku. Oh, hello there. The man smiled. Hi. I was just wondering if you're alright? You look sad. The man blinks. Yeah, I'm alright. Thank you. Then adds on, facing away from Izuku back to the ocean, just thinking. Izuku hums. Is there anything I can do to help? The man smiles softly. I'm afraid not, my boy. Thanks for the offer. Alright then. Yagi Tashinori. You are. Izuku. Thanks for the concern, young Izuku. Though I must be on my way now. Yagi says, smiling at Izuku. Izuku smiles back and Yagi walks away. Izuku lingers his gaze on Yagi until he's out of sight. He feels like he's seen him somewhere before. Maybe he walked past him at some point walking down the street? He doesn't think about it for long as Izuku decides it's time to head back to his claimed house. Izuku was hoping to find some sort of generator for electricity, though he hasn't had much luck. Izuku arrives at his house and settles at the desk in his room on the second floor. Taking out his notebook filled with things to do, he realizes he forgot to ask for jobs nearby. Damn it. He's been living in the building for around a week now and was losing money fast. Also the fact he hasn't been going to school, but instead has been learning in the library. That is how he knew how to fix a broken phone in the first place, even if it's still kinda tacky. He wonders if his mom ever regrets sending him off, if she wishes he would come back. He wonders how Kaken is doing, or even if he's thinking about him at all. He probably isn't. He is too prideful to be distracted to be thinking about him. A quirkless loser, not worth anyone's time. Another problem is that he's slowly growing out of his clothes he packed. All he has are All Might-related clothing or just plain shirts, shorts and jeans. He's going to have to use his money for new clothes soon. Well, that's for future Izuku to figure out. He thought as he closed his notebook and put it in his drawer. Katsuki knocks on the door of an apartment on the second floor. The door opens and Inko looks surprised to see him there. Katsuki, welcome. She says, smiling sweetly. Auntie. Is there anything you need, dear? Is Izuku here? He asks, raising an eyebrow. Inko startles at the question, face turning neutral before answering. He's not here at the moment. Is there a reason you're asking? That stupid nerd hasn't been in school for a week, and since you're his mom I thought you'd know why. I'm afraid I don't know why he isn't going. I'm sorry, Katsuki. She looks at him sadly. It's no bother. He grumbles. Inko giggles. Would you like to stay for tea, dear? Yeah, whatever. Inko opens the door slightly more open and Katsuki can see just how bare it looks inside. No personalization, no pictures hanging on the wall. It confuses Katsuki. The last time he was here it was colorful, pictures of him and Izuku in frames from before they got their quirks. Now it's all. Katsuki takes his shoes off at the door and walks into the kitchen. Have a seat, your tea will be ready soon. He takes his place on a chair at the counter, watching Inko making tea for them both. So how have you been, Katsuki? She asks. It's been a while since I saw you last. You were up to my knee the last time. Inko smiles softly. I've been good. What about you? Katsuki asks in return. He doesn't want to seem rude. Inko has always been so kind to him, even if he was 4 when he last saw her. Same old. Working at the hospital as a nurse, shopping. You get it. Inko walks over to the kettle that has finished boiling and pours the water into their cups. After mixing the tea bags and water together, Inko places his cup in front of him while she holds her own. Thanks. He says. It's no problem, dear. Katsuki sighs and takes a sip of his tea. It's good. Do you know when the nerd will be back? He asks Inko, still looking at his tea. Katsuki hears movement but doesn't look up. I don't know. She replies with. Katsuki looks up. What do you mean? One morning he was on the way to school and he didn't come back. Inko takes a breath. He still hasn't come back. So he ran away? A tear rolls down her face and she nods mutely. I tried to report him missing, but I was ignored after I told them he was quirkless. Inko sniffs. It's all so awful. Katsuki feels rage. How dare he run away from his wonderful, kind mother? He had everything. Why did he do this to her? Katsuki is snapped out of his thoughts of the sound of sobbing from the woman next to him. He stands up and walks over to her, squeezing her in a hug. It's all right, auntie, don't cry. Katsuki grimaces. He isn't good when people cry. He's most likely to make it worse. I am sorry, Katsuki. I'm just so worried. He's probably already dead by now. He is quirkless after all. Don't think like that. Izuku was always too stubborn. He definitely won't die if he can help it. Katsuki says, patting Inko's head as she cries. Stupid nerd. Shudakuen. Nizu exclaims as he walks into the staff room. Nizu. He deadpans, turning in his seat at his desk to face the rat. What is it? The other teachers in the room look at the exchange, looking back and forth between them. A word in my office, please? Nizu smiles a toothy grin. He turns around and out the door. Most likely heading to his office. Shoyuta gets up wordlessly and leaves the staff room, going in the direction of Nizu's office. What could the rat want with him? Shoyuta makes it to the office door, and walks in knowing the rat is expecting him already on the other side. Tea? Nizu questions. No thanks. So, what is it? Shoyuta asks, sitting on the other side of the rat. Oh, it's nothing really. Just something about your latest arrest, Sakata Jun. The man with the yellow eyes. Shoyuta raises an eyebrow. Yeah, what about him? Nizu places his tea on the desk, not a good sign. Well, something peculiar happened just yesterday. Nizu says, looking up at Shoyuta. Apparently he was about to say who he works for, though before he could say anything there was an electrical problem going around the precinct and needed the detective's attention. During that time when the detective left, he managed to escape the cuffs on the table and disappear. Due to the electrical problem, the cameras weren't working, so we couldn't find out how he managed to escape. So, he just disappeared? Shoyuta asks. Seems like it. Nizu replies, picking up his cup and taking a sip. I don't like the sound of that. Shoyuta says, crossing his arms. So what are we going to do about it? There's nothing we can do at the moment. Without any clues to where he went, he could be anywhere. Shoyuta sighs. Well, that's not good. Indeed it's not. Sir, I'm sorry. It won't happen again, I swear. Please spare me. A man yells. A man with vibrant yellow eyes, wide and frantic, with his dark brown hair messed up and matted. Now, Sakata. Try not to fight back, or it'll hurt more. His boss says, Kyudai, take him. No, please. I'll do anything at all. Sakata was getting desperate, but he already knows there's no point fighting. Once your fate is sealed, it's sealed. Right away, master. Kyudai replies, completely ignoring Sakata as he walks up to him with a sedative. No. Get away from me. Sakata tries to scramble back, though he can't move. He can't move. Kyudai injects the sedative and takes a few steps back as Sakata loses consciousness. The doctor carries him onto the table in the other room of the lab and starts the procedure. Izuku finds himself back at the beach the next day. Mostly just to calm his thoughts at the shore before going around asking for jobs. That was until he saw a familiar figure with blonde hair at the water. What was his name again? Yagi? Yagi seems more likely. Yagi-san. Izuku calls out, walking up to the man. Yagi turns around and smiles at Izuku. Hello, young Izuku. How have you been? I've been good. What about you? Yagi smiles sadly. I've been better, that's for sure. He chuckles dryly. Izuku frowns. What's up with Yagi-san? You want to talk about it? Yagi shakes his head. No. Thanks for the offer though, my boy. Izuku cringes at the name. Who calls a child stranger, their boy? Please don't call me that. Izuku winces. Yeah, that was weird. Oh, I'm sorry, young Izuku. Yagi smiles apologetically. It's all right. Izuku replies. Izuku looks away from the man to the ocean, then looks around the trash-filled beach and frowns. Something on your mind? Yagi asks. It's just a shame there's so much trash here. I'm pretty sure this beach used to be beautiful before. But now look at it. Yagi hums. Yeah, back in my day it was a beautiful beach. Though there's nothing we can really do about it. I guess so. Izuku stares back out at the ocean, sun glistening in the water. A few minutes pass and Izuku looks at the time shown on his phone. I'm sorry, Asen, I have to go now. Izuku looks up at him and smiles. I hope to see you another day. Yagi smiles back. Goodbye, young Izuku. Izuku waves as he makes his way to a less popular cafe. Opening the doors, the bell chimes as someone at the counter looks up and smiles. Hello. Welcome to Rose Cafe. How may I help you today? Izuku smiles. Hi, I was wondering if you need any extra hands? I'm unsure, you could go to the boss and ask. I can direct you to them if you want. That would be nice, thanks. The girl behind the counter smiles and asks Izuku to follow her as they make their way to the back. Going upstairs, the girl stops and knocks on a door. Come in. Someone calls from behind the door. The girl opens the door and leads Izuku inside. There's a desk in the middle of the room with bookshelves on the left and right side of the room, 2 potted plants in the far corners. Welcome. How may I help you? The person asked. They have brown hair tied in a ponytail and bright pink eyes. Oh, I was wondering if the cafe would need any extra hands? Izuku asks. We could use some help. Do you have a resume? No, sorry. Izuku replies. Please state your name, age, quirk, and if you have any previous working experience. Izuku probably shouldn't say his real name. I'm Mikumo Akatani. I'm 11 years old and I am quirkless. I have no working experience. The woman behind the desk scowled. That's not a good sign, Izuku thought. You're quirkless? Why yes. Please leave and don't come back. We don't serve or hire your kind. The woman said, shaking her head. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll go now, Izuku says, turning around and heading straight for the door and not looking back. Just because I'm quirkless? Well, he isn't really quirkless, but he can't prove that. Izuku sighs and goes to find a new place to apply. His first try was likely to fail anyway. After a couple hours of going around, he has had no luck whatsoever in getting a job, which was frankly quite disappointing. He told them his qualifications but was rejected because of his quirkless status. What if he just lied about his quirk? He's good at analysis, he'd like to think, so he can explain it's an analysis-type quirk. Well, only one way to find out if it will work. Any leads to where Sakata went? Shoyuta asked Tsukachi, who was currently flipping through his file. None at all, it's like he was never there in the first place. Tsukachi grunts, flipping the file page and skimming through its contents. Tsukachi hums. During the interrogation, didn't he seem a little on edge to you? Aren't all criminals on edge after they get caught? Shoyuta deadpants. You have a point. Though his behavior was unusual. Shoyuta raises an eyebrow. Unusual, how? He was tense, looking for exits, he was being excessively frantic. I don't think he was on edge because he was caught. Get to the point. Shoyuta sighs. I believe he was nervous because of who he works for. What boss likes having their pawns arrested? What if Sakata had valuable information? I believe his boss is powerful enough to break him out undetected and they're laying low for now. Tsukachi concludes, looking up at Shoyuta. That's a bit of a stretch, don't you think? Tsukachi shakes his head. It's a possibility, though. Well then, I guess I'll see you next time? Shoyuta asks, getting up from his chair. Yeah. See ya, Eraser. Goodbye, Tsukachi. I'm back, hag. Katsuki yells, entering his house. Where have you been, brat? Mitsuki asked, walking into the hallway from their living room. I was at Andy's. Not like it's any of your business anyway. Mitsuki's eyebrows raise. You were with Inko? Are you and Izuku still friends? Hell no. I'll never be friends with that nerd. He hasn't been in school for the past week and went to Auntie's to see what's up. Turns out he ran away. Katsuki grumbles as he unties his shoelaces. What? That's horrible. I wonder how Inko's feeling. Mitsuki frowns. Auntie isn't in the right mind space. Stupid Deku had to make her feel like it was her fault. She's been nothing but kind. What else would that useless shitbag want? Katsuki voices his thoughts. Brat, we don't call people that, no matter the reason. Still, did she try to contact the police about it? Katsuki takes off his shoes and leans on the wall. Said she tried, though got denied a search because he's quirkless. That's horrible. You know what? I'll give them a piece of my mind after I check in on Inko. Mitsuki turns around and heads to the phone in the kitchen. Katsuki huffs. Whatever, hag. I heard that. Brat. Mitsuki called from her place in the kitchen. Katsuki shakes his head as he makes his way up to his bedroom. Stupid Deku. You were always an idiot, but this is just stupid. You're late. A man said, looking at the now open door on the other side of the room. A boy with purple hair defying gravity closed the door behind him and looked up to his foster father. Don't make it a habit. The boy visibly relaxes at those words and silently makes his way to his room. Once inside, he instantly went to crash on his bed only to realize 5 minutes later that he forgot to do his homework. It was currently 11:30, and everyone in the foster house was either already asleep or getting ready. He doesn't have time to finish his homework, but if he doesn't finish his homework, he'll get in trouble at school tomorrow. Getting up from his bed, he goes to his bag on the floor and takes out his work. Going to his desk, he starts working on his maths homework, which was slightly ripped from what happened earlier. Hitoshi was just minding his own business, head down, not drawing attention to himself, when suddenly he got tripped over and all his contents in his bag were spilled out onto the floor. His homework was ripped and stood on, so he had nothing to hand in to the teacher. He got detention for a week because of that. If this keeps up, his record will be pitch black and dirty by the time he could even apply to UA. He's always wanted to be a hero, mostly out of spite to the people to call him villainous because of his quirk. Though he's always wanted to be a hero to save people, to help people like him who slip through the cracks of society. Though, no use thinking about heroes if what he's doing is maths. Resting his head on his hand, Hitoshi works through his homework until 2 a.m. to finally finish it. That work went down the drain the next day when his work was drowned in the fountain and easily ripped apart. He got an added 2 days of detention. Izuku now goes by the name Akatani Mikomo, not legally anyway. He's still Izuku Midoriya, just under an alias. During the last few days, Izuku has finally found a job. It was a small cafe near the border of Mizudafu and the red light district, so not many people go there. The cafe was called Cafe Minty. It was a decent cat cafe and sells stuff more on the minty side. Like mint ice cream, milkshakes, things like that. There are a total of 3 cats in the cafe. The first one had complete white fur named Snow. Not very original, but it fits knowing she likes the snow. The second is a gray tabby cat named Luna. She normally comes out when the place is darker and more peaceful. The last cat is a tuxedo cat called Ramen. Apparently he was found with a box of ramen on his head and the name just stuck. Oh well, they're all very cute kitties. He's on his shift at the moment, making coffee for a very familiar hero. Eraserhead. If he wants to keep his identity hidden, he's probably going to have to buy hair dye soon for his easily identified green hair. Maybe he should get some contacts too? Either way, he's making coffee for the hero who's sitting at the table with ramen currently sitting on his lap. The sight was honestly very cute, but he has to focus. Eraserhead is normally not picky of what coffee he has, as long as it's black, though he's going to add something special to it. In latte art, Izuku makes a cat shape in middle of the cup and serves it to Eraserhead, who takes the cup gratefully. Izuku turns back to the counter and sees a small hint of a smile on his face and the cat-shaped foam in the coffee. Soon after, he finished his cup and walked out of the cafe. Izuku sighs as he wraps up his shift and leaves to his claimed house. Jiren greeted Kurojairi, pouring a shot of whiskey and sliding it to the information broker. Kurojairi. Jiren greeted back, taking a sip of his whiskey. So, Jiren starts. What do you and the underground boogeyman need from me? We were wondering if you could recommend some people to us with useful quirks. Really? You recruiting? Jiren asks. Something like that. Replies Kurojairi coolly, washing a cup with his rag. Useful how? Things like regeneration, shock absorption, you know? Kurogiri turns around to place the cup on the counter and grabs another cup to wash as Jiren thinks over his request. I'll see if I can find something useful to you. Jiren pauses then grins. For a price. Whatever you need, Jiren. We need them here by the end of the month. Think you can do it? Challenges Kurogiri. If he had eyebrows, Jiren's sure he'd be raising one. PSH, don't worry. You'll get your goodies by the end of the month. Pay half now and the rest after. Very well. It's been a couple weeks now since Izuku has gotten his job at the cafe. It's been quite a peaceful ride so far, but Izuku can't help but feel something terrible might happen soon considering his luck. Either way, he's going to take advantage of the sun before the storm as much as he can. God knows it isn't often. Izuku believes he's quite skilled in the cafe, despite being he has steady hands and can make the art easily, plus he thinks Eraserhead likes the new addition to his coffee before his patrol. Izuku is walking down the street, sun up in the sky illuminating the area. Izuku suddenly feels a sense of déjà vu, except his mother isn't walking next to him. He frowns as he remembers the first time he found out his quirk. Speaking of his quirk, he hasn't used it in a while. He just hasn't needed to die and rewind. The first time he jumped off his old apartment's roof, he felt a sense of calm falling with the wind, though it didn't last long as it was only 4 stories high. Maybe he should try again? No, those thoughts are bad. Bad Izuku. Still, he thinks of the calmness he felt, the feeling of the wind brushing against him, and he fell to his inevitable death. Though he didn't die. This isn't normal, he thinks. Really, what is he doing? Imagining the euphoria he felt when he jumped, what a joke. Izuku was taken out of his inner argument with himself by bumping into someone. Izuku muttered a quick apology and helped them pick up their things. Izuku stands back up, their belongings in his hands, and he finally goes to see who he bumped into. They had purple hair with eyes the same color with complimentary bags under their eyes. They looked surprised and confused. I'm so sorry. I should have looked where I was going, now I ruined your things. Geez, I'm so hopeless. Izuku sputtered left and right. It's all right. Akatani Mikumo. Shinso Hitoshi. Shinso replied, taking the things from Izuku. It was really nice to meet you, Shinso. Again, I'm really sorry for bumping into you. And again, it's all right, Akatani. Shinso drawls. Sorry to cut this meeting short, but I've really got to go now. Goodbye, Akatani. And before Izuku could reply, he was already on his way. Izuku flushes in embarrassment when he leaves. Oh my god, that was so embarrassing. He's the first person I've talked to in ages who's my age, and I've completely buffed it. Shaking his head, Izuku heads down to the trash-filled beach and sees Yagi-san sitting at the beach again. Deciding not to bother him, Izuku makes his merry way to the shore. He wishes the beach wasn't so hazardous. That way he could just walk across the beach instead of doing improvised parkour through the piles. Maybe he should clean the beach up? Now that he thinks about it, he isn't very strong and this can be some sort of practice for strength. Plus, if he wants to be a hero, he's going to have to be strong and maybe even figure out a few fighting techniques. Well, he has his phone and can search up what to do. How hard could it be, anyway? Apparently very hard and time-consuming. It's only been 3 hours and the sun is setting now and he's barely gotten started. Around half an hour when he arrived, Yagi-san left with a small smile on his face. But now it's turning darker and becoming colder, so Izuku calls it a day and walks back to his house. Yagi Toshinori smiled as he watched young Izuku clean the beach. Even if it wasn't a lot of trash cleaned, it warmed his heart to see someone so young try and tidy the place. That beach was the last place he talked to his mentor, Nana, before she left to fight All for One. Just being in the area gives him a sense of nostalgia. I want to make a world where everyone smiles and lives together happily. For that to happen, people need a symbol. A symbol? Questions Nana Shimura. A symbol of peace. Toshinori looked up to his floating mentor. The reason crime is on the rise everywhere is because citizens have nobody to believe in. They need to rely on someone. Is that why you want to become a hero? Even though you're quirkless? When he finally received one for all from her, She was so supportive and by his side the whole way. Be proud, Tashinori, you went down a long hard road to obtain this power. Of course it's going to take a lot of work to master it. Tashinori comes down to the beach to mourn over his lost mentor, who was brutally and mercilessly killed at the hands of All for One, a murder that never should have happened when she was still so young. Shaking his head from his thoughts, Tashinori leaves to pay a visit to one of his most trusted friends, Tsukachi Naomasa. Tsukachi is taken out of his head by a knock sounding at his office door. Come in, he calls, going back to working on his file of the mysterious disappearance of Sakata. The door opens and closes, and Naomasa looks up. Tashinori looked back down at him. Good afternoon, Naomasa, he greets, sitting at a seat opposite of Naomasa. Ah, Tashinori. Good to see you, he replies with a smile. Anything I can help you with? I know. I was just here to see how you're holding up. Is the paperwork giving you any trouble? Naomasa shakes his head fondly. No, I've got it all handled, thanks. So how was your day? It went well. I was at Dagoba Beach and a boy I met a few times before there was cleaning it up. Naomasa raises an eyebrow. That trashy beach? And he's cleaning it up? He must have some motivation, that's for sure. Tashinori huffs a laugh. I guess so. Young Izuku is determined. His name is Izuku? Did you get his last name? Tsukachi asked. It's not every day you hear about people connected to previous cases. Especially after that incident with his mother that made him have a gut feeling that something was wrong. No, he didn't tell me. Though he's got a caring heart. Ah. Tsukachi agrees. Well then, if you don't need anything else, I really need to finish the paperwork. Maybe we can meet at lunch tomorrow? Suggested Tsukachi, looking at Tashinori. Lunch sounds great. I'll see you then. Tashinori replies, standing up and leaving to go do whatever he does. The next time Izuku goes to the beach, he notices Yagi-san has brought a friend of his. The man and Izuku lock eyes and he immediately turns away and goes back to what he was doing, which was trying to move a rusted fridge. He doesn't try for long as someone calls out to him, Midoriya, and Izuku is already halfway across the beach before the man could catch up to him. How does he know his name? Who is he anyway? He doesn't think he met him before, and he certainly didn't tell Yagi-san his last name. Midoriya. Wait. Izuku hears footsteps crunching on the sand behind him, and he stops and faces a man with dark hair and black eyes. He's wearing a beige trench coat over a white collared shirt. Hi. Izuku says, taking a step back. It's good to see you again, Midoriya. How are you getting on? The man asks. Izuku blinks. Does he know him? He must sense his confusion as the man laughs and introduces himself. Sorry. My name is Tsukachi Naomasa. I'm on the police force who asked you questions when you were taken in. How's your ankle? It must be fine now, though. And Izuku suddenly recognizes the man. He's the detective that tried to stand up to him against his mother. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my ankle is okay now. There's another set of footsteps coming from behind Tsukachi, and a few moments later Yagi-san reveals himself. Naomasa, this is young Izuku. Though you may have already known that. Yagi chuckles. Yeah, his name is Izuku Midoriya. I met him through a case a while back. Tsukachi turns back to face Izuku. So how's school? Got any friends? That's a weird question. Izuku blinks and realizes he's been quiet for too long and hastily answers. Oh, yeah. School has been fine. Yep, friends are good too. Izuku cringes on how unbelievable that sounded. It seems Tsukachi thinks the same as his smile falters. You do remember my quirk, right? I can tell if anyone's either lying or telling the truth. And how that isn't good dash. Tell me, are you all right at home? Izuku hesitates. He said home in the house where Inko lives in isn't classified as home to him. Not anymore. So he is technically all right in his building, isn't he? No electricity, one heating source and some nutrition bars laying about. Izuku thinks he's doing all right. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Thanks. Izuku replies, and Tsukachi smiles at his technical truth. That's good then. So what about school? Is everything alright there? Why are you asking all these questions? Izuku defends, it is a bit weird he's asking all of these questions. He hasn't even seen the man in like, God knows how many months. Even Yagi-san looks confused, if his looking back and forth between him and the detective is anything to go by. No reason, just checking in. Though you don't have to answer if you're not comfortable. He replies. Izuku just nods. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to go now. Maybe I'll see you around? Okay, bye Tsukachi-san, Yagi-san. And Izuku leaves before he can hear a reply. Tsukachi just had him. He was right there and he blew it. He knew he should have just brought him in instead of stalling. After that phone call by somebody called Mitsuki Bakugo, he knew what would happen if he didn't come back with the boy. What's peculiar is that Izuku's mother didn't actually report him missing, unless it was the work of his Quirkist colleagues covering it up. Still, he let him get away by scaring him off. He's never usually like this, he knows what he has to do. Izuku could be in danger and they would never know, though he confirmed he was alright where he was staying, but what's alright to him? Damn it, Tsukachi mutters. He was right there. Neo Mesa? The voice of Tashinori startled him, he forgot he was there. You alright? What do you mean he was right there? Tsukachi sighs. Apparently Izuku ran away from home around a month ago. A week after his disappearance, his mother came to us but was rejected due to his quirk status. We received a phone call later that week from a family friend threatening us if we didn't find him. There's a few moments of silence, then Tashinori speaks. That's not good. And turned to face where Izuku had speed walked down. This is bad, this is bad, this is very, very bad. Look, it wasn't his fault things ended out like this. You know the man had it coming, Izuku just couldn't stand there and watch while he started pinning that girl to the wall of the alley. Plus it wasn't anything excessive, just a whack to the temple with a can of beans discarded by the dumpster. After the man was knocked out, Izuku turned to face the girl who was now sitting on the ground, eyes locked on the man like he'd come awake any second. Are you okay? He asks, crouching down in front of her. She turns to look at Izuku and nods. That's good, are you alright to call the police or should I? Izuku asks with a smile. I'll call them. Thank you. She replies, reaching down to her pocket and calling the police. Izuku looks around to see if there's anything to tie the man up with, though there isn't anything, so Izuku settles on staying in the alley, watching the man for any signs of waking up and giving company to the girl, until he hears sirens. Well, that's his K. Izuku stands up and tells the girl to be safe and he leaves the alley. A few minutes of walking down the sidewalk, 2 blaring police cars pass him without taking a second glance at the kid on the street. When Izuku arrives back at his house, he feels giddy and excited. He saved someone again. Without using reiteration. The man never stood a chance against him and his can full of beans. And you know? He'd do it again. If it means saving at least one more person, he'd use every advantage he's got. Tamura, a voice calls from the television in a lightly lit bar. Sensei. Tamura replies. I've got a side quest for you to complete. Sensei announces, and for a fragment of a second Kurogiri falters and nearly drops the glass he's cleaning. Oh, and what would that be? Tamura asks, pausing his game and turning to look at the television. I had a call from an acquaintance of mine, and they need an NPC off the map. Will you do the honors of getting rid of this unnecessary character? Depends what's in it for us. Something very valuable, that's all you need to know. And with that the television flickered off, leaving Kurogiri and Tamura in silence, his game becoming a white noise in the background. Apparently what Izuku was doing was something called vigilantism. After he arrived back at his house, he searched up what vigilantism was. Vigilantism is when an individual uses their quirk to save people without legal authority. Pretty simple, illegal, but simple nonetheless. Izuku knows he won't have a chance against villains if he doesn't gain muscle or any training, though cleaning the beach would up his muscles and learning to fight should be simple, right? He could just watch some videos on what to do. It's when Izuku is nearly done his shift at the cafe when the news being broadcast caught his attention. A photo of him on screen, the news reporter saying, "Quirkless boy, Izuku Midoriya has gone missing." Izuku scoffs, 'Cause that's all he is, isn't he? Just some quirkless, useless Deku. Wait, now that he's missing, would Yagi-san hand him in? What about Tsukachi? Since he regularly goes to the beach, they'd probably scout there to see if he shows up. He's going to need an alternative way to gain strength. He may be 11, but he isn't stupid. Well, that's debatable, though the point is he isn't going to hand himself in on a silver platter. He's doing fine on his own. He's got a job, money, food, heat, still no electricity, though he should probably find some generator or camping lamp for lighting. Izuku's shift has finally finished, so he leaves the cafe and heads down to his house. He's going to have to do more research before he jumps into this whole vigilante thing. Maybe he could just walk about at night to see where most crime happens? If he settles upon a crime, who is he to ignore them? If he dies, he could always rewind and try again until he gets it right. If that's not at least a decent plan, he doesn't know what is. Name, Izuku Midoriya. Age, 11. Birthdate, 15/05/2134. Quirk, and it was last seen, Dagoba Beach, 1556. Features, green hair, green eyes. Freckles, 4 feet 8 inches. Shoyuta stares at the file in his hand. There wasn't much information on the boy as he would have liked. He was last seen by Yagi Tashinori and Tsukachi Naomasa. Apparently Midoriya was the boy from the alley from when they arrested Sakata a few months ago. Shoyuta sighs as he places the file back onto Tsukachi's desk, the man in question already taking the file back and rereading through it. According to Yagi, Midoriya frequents Dagoba Beach, so it's safe to assume he may go back. Or not, you might as well have scared him away. Shoyuta deadpans. Ta. Tsukachi rolls his eyes. Though we should probably search places near Dagoba if he doesn't return, cause I scared him away. Sounds good. I don't want him on the streets for long. Shoyuta doesn't like the idea of any child being on the streets. Who knows what could happen? We'll make sure he's safe. Tsukachi smiled reassuringly as Shoyuta sighed. I hope so, he says, getting up from his seat and leaving Tsukachi's office without a second glance. Izuku takes some cash out of his stash and leaves his house to a store nearby. People are undoubtedly looking for him now, especially with that detective he saw the other day. So, Izuku is on the way to buy some hair dye. He doesn't know what color would go well. Should he dye it blue? Red? Maybe something simple like black? Izuku arrives at the store and heads to the dye aisle. He scans the shelves as he picks out a plain black. It's simple, can go over his green curls, and would be practical to hide in shadows when he becomes a vigilante. He checks out and heads back to his house to apply the dye. It's been a couple days now since they started scouting out Dagoba Beach with no Izuku in sight. Shoyuta walks up to Tsukachi. Told you so. You scared him away. Tsukachi sighs. Maybe, or he knows we're looking for him now cause his face is plastered on the news. Maybe, though he couldn't have gone far. At that moment Shuta's phone rang, interrupting Tsukachi and his conversation. Sorry, gotta take this. Shoyuta says, walking away to a more private area. He answers the call, raising the phone to his ear. Hello. Hello, is this Eraserhead? A young voice asks. Yes. Shuta's eyebrows furrow. Who's this? I'm Kamaya Yumiko. I'm the chief of the Hero Commission. We ask you to stop searching for the quirkless thing. What? Shoyuta grits his teeth. Who do they think they are? I'm sure you heard me, though I'll repeat. As a part of the Hero Public Safety Commission, we ask you to stop searching for the quirkless boy. But why should I stop looking for a child who's living on the streets? Because it's quirkless. Plus, I personally don't think it has a chance. Don't forget, if you don't drop this case, we could easily revoke your hero license. That's a whole load of bullshit, Shoyuta seethes. Shoyuta would rather have his hero license revoked if it meant that the child could have a safe place to stay. Language. Drop the case or you're done. Shoyuta clenches his fist as he listens to the disconnected tone. What? Because he's quirkless. Shoyuta pockets his phone and makes his way back to Tsukachi. Tsukachi. Eraser? You alright? He asks, undoubtedly noticing his change of attitude. I just got a call from the Hero Commission. Want me off this case? What? Why? Shoyuta takes a breath. Because he's quirkless. What? Tsukachi asked, disbelieving though it was expected of the commission. Exactly that. This is illogical. Public safety my butt. Shoyuta snarks as Tsukachi frowns sadly. Well then, this outcome isn't preferred, though the commission has the final say. I know that. Shoyuta stresses. Though I can't help but feel sad at this. So what if he's quirkless? There's a teenager somewhere living on the streets and I'd rather make sure he's safe than listening to that shitty commission. Tsukachi sighs. I know what you mean. But don't worry, I'll look for him. The commission's got nothing on me. So try to calm down and make sure you don't lose your job. Shoyuta takes a steadying breath. Sorry. He mumbles. Don't worry, I'm also sad by this revelation. Though I can't say I'm surprised. Shoyuta hums. He's still feeling very conflicted in obeying the commission, though to his annoyance, he has to or else his already low income will be shortened. Sure, he doesn't do hero work for the money, but he needs to get it from somewhere to survive. He also has Hisashi, though he doesn't like using his husband's hard-earned money. I'll keep an eye out on my patrols. See you later, Tsukachi. Shoyuta adds, receiving a nod from the man. Tsukachi smiles. Stay safe, Eraser. Izuku looks into the cracked mirror in his bathroom. He has successfully dyed his hair black, and honestly is rocking the color. Another thing gone that reminds him of his mother. He knew she was bound to kick him out sooner or later, he just never thought it would be that early. He hoped he would have been able to stay for around another year or so. Though, that was out of his control. And now he's on the run? He's going into hiding until people stop trying to look for him. Who even reported him? Did his mother report him? Maybe not. She made it clear she wanted nothing to do with him. No matter, things will work out in the end if he's lucky. Anyways, with a decent disguise out of the way, he decided to do some more research on vigilantes and maybe some more loopholes he could use to lessen the punishment if he's ever caught. Though if he does, he could just rewind and try to avoid those outcomes. Easy, right? So Izuku went to his room and started researching on his trash phone that occasionally flickers. He really has to do something about that, but how does he fix it? There might be some books at the library that explain mechanics and how to build stuff. He'll visit tomorrow, see if they have any or if he'll have to figure it out through trial and error. There's also the thought of no electricity. He should definitely invest in a generator of some sorts. It gets pretty dark at night and Izuku would need to use his phone's barely working flashlight, though he doesn't use it a lot as he's already asleep by then, but it's on nights where he's busy filling his notebooks on the desk. Well, that's a problem for future Izuku. Present Izuku has research to do. Such a shame, all for one thought as he heard the news. Izuku Midoriya has gone missing, and to top it off he's quirkless. Such prejudice to such a young boy. What a coincidence he is that same boy who he was hired to erase from the world. A woman by the name Inko called him. Ironic she was his own mother. Apparently he has been adding too much attention to her as of late. The police took her statements left and right to try and find him. Well, if they do it'll just make his job easier. Though that's not what he was paid for and instead has to get the police off her case and pronounce him dead. Inko has become such a disappointing character over the years. As All for One tries to figure out where the child went, then and only then will Tamura wipe out this NPC, as he would say. Though, it isn't the only way. The boy may have some value. Maybe he could convince him into joining the league? He certainly has the reason to. Discriminated against his peers, parents, authority figures, and much more. Well, that's a thought for later. Shinso sat quietly on the foster family's couch watching the news, a rare privilege for the purple-haired boy. Apparently someone went missing whose picture looks weirdly familiar, though he just can't place it. Well, that's annoying. It's nearing the end of his TV time, so Shinso shuts the TV off and makes his way to the bedroom without uttering a word. Only until he's safe in his room he takes a breath. He hasn't been bothered in a while, and it's setting him on edge. He's currently waiting for the other shoe to drop. That would inevitably disturb the peace he's gotten the past few days. You know what they say, all good things come to an end. Well, if they're not bothering him for the moment, he won't waste a single second of it. It's been a week since Izuku has been declared missing, and officially his case was dropped due to speculations of him being dead. Izuku figured that out while working at the cafe, cleaning the counter while listening to the news. It was also strange to figure out that Eraserhead of all people was on his case. On the first night his case was opened, Izuku served him his normal order while sneaking a peek at the files on the table. He didn't look through it or anything. He saw his picture in the corner and his name clear as day. After that he immediately looked away. He still looked like the picture after all. That's when he had the brief idea of getting a disguise of sorts. Anywho, Izuku has a mission. Finding out how to fix his phone. On top of other things to figure out. Izuku wonders if there's any law books at the library, maybe he can check them out? See which ones would give him the advantage when he gets caught. And on that thought, Izuku arrives at the library. It's later in the day, a few hours before he starts his shift, so he has plenty of time. Opening the door, Izuku looks in and is amazed by just the sheer amount of books on the shelves. It's been a while since he's been at a library. The only time he went was when Inko was in a good mood to watch over him so he doesn't hurt himself, and that he needs to be watched to be safe. Like he could hurt himself at a library of all things. Wandering down the aisles, he makes it to the area he was looking for. Design, engineer, and construct. For his project, the book he's looking for is most likely in the engineer genre. Izuku makes his way to the first books he sees and checks the contents to see if it would be useful to him. After checking a few books, Izuku finally finds the one he's been looking for. After reading it and making sure he knows what he's doing, Izuku closes the book and sets it back on the shelf. It was really interesting. So apparently all he needs is some parts for it and should be as good as new. Well, as new as it can get, looking like it came from a dump, and it did come from a dump. Maybe he should check the beach again? He is technically dead after all. Plus, he has black hair now, top-notch disguise if you ask him. With a firm nod, Izuku gets up and leaves the library on his way to the beach. Around 20 minutes later he arrived and saw a familiar face with blonde hair. That's going to be a problem. Keeping his head down, Izuku makes his way through the maze of trash, all while looking for the parts he needs. Not long after he found them, he found a spot on the beach to work at and started to fix his phone, successfully stopping the flashes. Izuku feels pretty proud of himself. Getting up from his seating position on the sand, Izuku walks back up the steps to the coast, actively avoiding Yagi-san and making his way back to his house. Tsukachi! What the F dash? Tsukachi looked up to the door, making eye contact with a glaring Aizawa. He blinked and looked back down in silent anger. It was out of my hands. I couldn't do anything. Replies Tsukachi, going back to writing on his open file on his desk. What do you mean it was out of your hands? What happened to? We'll make sure he's safe. Why the F do I turn on the news to find out he's dead? Shoyuta asks in anger. He's not angry at Tsukachi, he knows he can't do anything, though it doesn't stop the lingering rage of himself failing yet another person. A child. Tsukachi sighs as he rubs his eyes. We don't have a body, we don't actually know if he's dead or not. They're just Quirkist BS's not wanting to waste another second looking for him. Oh, the head. Tsukachi shakes his head. The commission. The DMN commission. They're going this far because he's quirkless? He takes a breath. I bet this isn't the first time they've done shit like this. Shoyuta replies. Nods Tsukachi, taking a sip of his coffee. F dash. Really, such a shame. I guess the quirkless really do never make it far. All for one thinks as he listens to the news once again. Well then. Mutters all for one, as he makes a call to the boy's mother. It rings once, then twice, and it finally answers. Hello. Inko questions. Who's this? Inko did. Remember our deal? What, did you finally kill the brat? Inko asks coldly. If nobody else is taking credit, might as well turn it to his favor. Yes, I have disposed of the boy. Now you know what the payment is, yes. A sigh can be heard from the receiver. Right then. You've got your favor. Use it well. All for one chuckles. Pleasure doing business with you, Inko. All for one swiftly hangs up the phone and grins. At least you had one use, Izuku. A use that's very helpful. Aizawa Shoyuta is absolutely fuming. The commission, their rules. He's had enough of all this discrimination. He isn't a stranger to it, being called a villain. Others were scared of him for taking away people's gifts from God. What a joke. It wouldn't rest until he found Midoriya. It may seem excessive, though he isn't going to let a child out on the streets if he can help it, quirkless or not. Papers and files are scattered over the coffee table in the apartment. It's been a few hours since he met with Tsukachi, when he found out that said child could be dead. He isn't going to believe them though, who would? Show Yuta hopes to God he isn't dead. If so, he'd just be another person he failed, someone who died at the hands of their discrimination. Just the thought makes Shoyuta sick. Just where are you, Midoriya Izuku? Izuku is now shopping. He was running low on food and breakfast bars, so he took some of the money he earned and is now browsing in a store. He feels very out of place, raggedy hoodie with ripped jeans with his red high tops. Totally looking like a normal citizen who isn't homeless. Izuku is still pondering the idea of being a vigilante. I mean, I'm already 1 foot in, might as well put in the other. If that's how the saying goes. He still has lanky arms with no visible muscle, and definitely more underweight than a normal 11-year-old. Finishing up his shopping, Izuku makes his merry way back to his house. Upon entering, the area is still pretty dark, though not as much as it was still in the middle of the day. Going to the kitchen, he stored all his food into the cupboards and made his way up the stairs to the bedroom and got ready for bed. Erkless teen assumed dead. A real tragedy. The police inform us that they did everything they could for him, though the teen's death was inevitable while powerless. Wouldn't you dash? Katsuki tuned out the rest. He can't stand listening to those shitty reporters and their shitty opinions. But that doesn't change the fact that Deku is dead. There's a photo of him on the news, bushy green hair, freckles, and his annoying, never-ending smile. Actually, when was the last time he saw the shitty Deku? It was the week before he went to Auntie's, wasn't it? When he got his nerdy, useless self stuck in that dumpster. Or maybe not. He doesn't remember, not like he needs to anyway. What does matter is now the old hag is crying on the couch, head in her hands while the old man comforts her by dragging an arm around her shoulders. Shitty parents. Poor Izuku. He was such a nice boy, sobs Mitsuki, making no move to remove her hands from her eyes. He was a useless Deku anyways, I don't know why you're making a big deal out of it, says Katsuki with a cross of his arms. Katsuki! Yelled Mitsuki, finally opening her eyes to stare at her son with a look of horror and anger. How could you say that? Weren't you two friends? Ah, no way. Me and that shitty Deku were never friends since we were 5. Plus I said a while ago that we weren't, what the hell? Katsuki was confused, but mostly angry. What was he doing wrong? It's not like anyone cared for him anyways. Mitsuki was at a loss for words, something that never normally happens. Just go to your room, Katsuki. Whatever. And on that note, Katsuki left the room and went to his room. Opening the door and closing it behind him, Katsuki sits down on his bed and starts reading. During the past week, Izuku has been working and saving money for his vigilante outfit. Now he finally has enough. He has gotten himself a navy blue hoodie with black cargo pants and black shoes. For his face he got a black mask that covers the lower half of his face and reflective goggles from a cosplay shop not so far away. The time is now midnight, it's pretty dark out, and so it's the perfect time to start his patrol, if you can even call it that. He's mostly just going out to get used to the area. Sure, he's been living there for quite a while, though he doesn't really know. Though while he's out and someone needs help, who is he to ignore? Tying his black hair up was a hassle, though he did it in the end, and now he's ready to not officially start working. It's been around 30 minutes when Izuku started exploring the back alleys. It was honestly very dark and hard to see, causing him to bump into things constantly. Like empty metal cans or stepping into unfavorable things. Though that doesn't deter him in the slightest. If he really wants to do this, he'll have to be familiar with the place in case things get out of hand. Speaking of, does he really want to do this? Like really? He's only 11 with minimal training and barely any muscles. He's not even experienced in weapons. Plus, what could a quirkless kid do to be of any help? He might just end up bothering everyone instead of helping. This isn't a fun trail of thought. It doesn't matter. He'll do anything to help anyways even if others won't think so. Yeah. That's what he'll do, no more moping around. With that, Izuku maps out in his head where everything is. Best escape routes, places where crime is most likely to happen and more. When he thinks he has enough information for the night another hour later, he turns back to his home. He's got work the next day anyways. Shoyuta Aizawa is on patrol. He may have told the commission that he isn't looking for Midoriya anymore, but that won't stop him from searching while at work. They don't even have a body to verify if he's dead, they just straight up assume that he is because he's the lowest on the food chain. He doesn't even know the kid, though he'll keep searching subtly so the commission doesn't get on his butt for it. He just barely got his hero license because of the discrimination. How can someone with such a villainous quirk become a hero? He may have failed the entrance exam when he attended UA, though thanks to the sports festival and some help from the principal he was able to transfer into the hero course. Shaking his thoughts away, Shoyuta carries on his patrol. Jumping from rooftop to rooftop with the help of his capture weapon, looking down into the alleys every once in a while. He decides to have a break around 45 minutes later, perching himself at the edge of some random roof, looking out to the streets below being lit by the streetlights that occasionally flicker. Taking a jelly pouch out of his pocket, he takes a sip and ties the lid back on it while storing it back in his pocket. Nothing is coming through the hero comms for any action, so Eraserhead decides to just head home and end his patrol early. Just as he thought he'd finally get some shut-eye with his husband, the comms ringed to life as someone spoke. "We've got a robbery 2 blocks over, please head in that direction." "Over." Eraserhead sighs, "On the way." "Over." He then turns to that direction. The closer he gets the louder the alarms blare. He stops on a roof across the street from the jewelry store, waiting for the criminals to reveal themselves. He doesn't want to walk in blind. Roughly around 3 minutes later, 2 men walk out of the store. The one on his left is a tall skinny man, black hair, and he is wearing a suit. The one on the right isn't quite as skinny or as tall, though for what he can make out in the dark it seems like he has horns on his head just barely hidden from his unruly brown hair. Probably a mutation. They both walk in confidence, bags of jewelry in either hand. If he looks hard enough, he can see them both grinning. The man on the right had sharp, shark-like teeth while the other had a silver tooth visible. Deciding he stalled for long enough, he jumps down from the roof and restrains them both before they could get any farther, activating his quirk just in case. "What the hell?" Thug number 1 yelled, squirming in his weapon. "You said there were no heroes nearby, Hachiro? It must have been a miscalculation." "Oops." Thug number 2, Hachiro, replies lamely. Thug number 1 looks appalled. "Oops? Oops? Is that all you have to say for yourself?" Hachiro blinks. "Yes." He deadpans. "Why you fuck? While this is quite entertaining, you've gotta go now." Eraserhead interrupts, knocking them both out and halting their tries to escape his scarf. With a roll of his eyes, he calls for someone to pick them up. He just wants to go home already. Melly Grant sees herself as a calm, reassuring woman. Being the president of the Hero Commission, those traits are needed in her line of work. Reassuring the public that everything will be fine. That the heroes will protect them. She doesn't mind doing anything morally concerning if it means villains will be put behind bars. Though that doesn't really address everyone, does it? Being the president obviously has its perks. Like, for example, people having to take your word and can't fight back. There's something oddly satisfying about the sheer power she holds. Fixing her black suit jacket and pressing down her purple shirt, she walks into a meeting room with all the other top workers in the organization. The room that was once filled with whispered chatter comes to a stop when she enters. Attention all focused on her. "Good evening, everyone. We've got quite a bit to discuss, so let's not waste any time," Grant says, taking her seat at the end of the table. The room is spacious, with a large table in the middle of the room. There's a projector on, facing the wall with a slideshow ready. There are many windows also, bringing in natural lighting as well as the artificial light from the ceiling. The occupants in the room at the moment are the newly debuted Hero Hawks and the number 24 Hero Mirko with a few commission secretaries. "Right then, what's up?" Hawks asks coolly, a sly grin on his face. This isn't a happy-go-lucky matter. Please take this seriously, Hawks. She replies with a frown. Right, sorry. Anyways, on to business. She starts, flicking a remote to the projector and switching the slide showing pictures of children. Many children. What's this about? Asks Mirko, raising an eyebrow and crossing her arms. These are a few pictures of missing children around Japan, all of which have something in common. She switches to the next slide, which shows incident reports and some personal information on the children. First on the list we have Okano Aiko. She was 9 years old when she was reported missing early in the morning last month. Her quirk being shock absorption. Grant continues. Was she found? Hawk says. She's just so young. No. The only thing that case leads to is dead ends. Grant answers, already turning to the next slide with another incident. This is Kuba Shuji. He was 12 years old when he was reported missing. The same afternoon Aiko was reported missing. So they went missing the same day? Mirko confirms. Yes. Me and the rest of the police force have a feeling they're connected. His quirk being super regeneration. He was also never found, was he? Hawk says. Grant was right, this was not a happy-go-lucky time. Unfortunately, that is correct. Grant shakes her head. It's estimated they were taken at the same time. In the middle of the night in their own homes. How someone can sneak in and out without getting caught is a mystery to me. That is a little freaky. Replies Mirko. It was not a coincidence, it was planned out. It was executed flawlessly. Not adding on to the fact both of them live in different districts. There's probably a team, or someone who can be somewhere and somewhere else at the same time. That makes sense. Hawks answers, pressing his hand to his chin while testing his elbow on the table. So what do you need us to do? To be quite frank, there isn't much you can do. Then why call us here? I'm pretty sure the police is competent to close this case, no? Mirko crosses her leg over the other, still folding her arms across each other. We just need you on the lookout. If you can do at least that, you're free to leave. Grant replies, gesturing to the door. Yeah, we can keep a lookout for the kids. Don't worry about that. Hawks exclaims cheerfully. As I said before, this isn't the time or place for smiles, Hawks. She deadpants. Sorry. Hawks rubbed the nape of his neck sheepishly. Thank you for taking the time to meet me here, we'll talk more about this later. Please keep a lookout for those children and any other potential targets for the future. You got it, I mean. Right, good day. And at that, Hawks and Mirko leave the meeting room with looks of determination. Shota. Hizashi drawls, Quirk easily being erased by the erasure hero. What do you want? He asks from his desk in the UA teacher's lounge. Hizashi and him arrived earlier than usual, so the only ones in the room are him and Mike. Can you mark this pile for me, Dash? No. He deadpants, not looking up to his husband. But show. It has to be marked by today and I'm not even halfway through it. Pretty please? No. Why? Because I said so, he said, crossing off something on the paper in front of him in a red pen. Please show? I'll make you coffee? He was about to reply, when the door to the lounge burst open revealing Namuri Kiyama, also known as the 18-plus hero, Midnight. Hello, pretty boys. She drags on, ascending into the room and sandwiching herself between them. What's going on today? Won't help me mark the work due today, exclaimed Hizashi. You need to do your own responsibilities. He deadpants. See? So unfeeling. Whatever. Shoyuta rolls his eyes. If you need any help just ask Nam. Pointing a thumb right at her. Sorry bud. Got my own things to work on today. She gets up and pats Hizashi on the head before heading to her desk. Show. What? Please. No. Hizashi dramatically places a hand to his chest and the other to his forehead and whispers, Is this what heartbreak feels like? Shut up, Zashi. If you really want that work done you should have started already. Okay. But now as punishment for not helping me, no more coffee. Don't dare. Shoyuta says, finally looking at Hizashi. You can get coffee if you help me. Fine. Pass it here. When is it due? 12 p.m. He replies, having the stack on the desk and passing it over. Right. So we've got like... Shoyuta trails off, looking at his watch. It was currently 7:15 in the morning. Around 5-ish hours. Thanks, Sho. You're the best. Hizashi yells, a smile on his face. Whatever. He shakes his head fondly. After that, Shoyuta starts marking the papers Hizashi gave to him. Now, to be completely honest, he isn't the best at English. Sure, he passed it, though just barely. Taking one look at the paper, Shoyuta then looks at Hizashi. You got a marking sheet or something, or am I meant to go through this blindly? Hizashi snorts. I forgot you SCKED at English. Give me a minute, I'll get it for you. Hizashi then stands up and walks to a shelf, taking a sheet of paper out of a folder. Here. Thanks. He replies. Izuku was having a blast. For once in his shitty life, things are finally turning around for the better. For now, at least. Right now he's standing on the edge of a rooftop, another rooftop across from him. If you couldn't already tell, he's trying out parkour. Sure, it's cool to watch other people do it on videos, but it's actually so much harder and scarier to actually do it. He's already died twice falling off the roof of a miscalculated jump. He doesn't want to fall again, thanks. Taking a breath in, adrenaline pumps through his veins as Izuku sprints until he's at the very edge of the roof before jumping over, landing in a roll on the other side. It's very bright and hot outside, which he can understand as spring is now turning to summer. His t-shirt is soaked in sweat as well as his other pair of cargo trousers. His breathing came out heavy. He isn't exactly experienced in the whole jumping across roofing thing. He's obviously still got a lot to learn. Though now he knows the basics, and if he really needs to, he can use the roofs now as an escape route. Izuku was just laying on the roof, sunbathing, when he heard the roof door open. On high alert, Izuku sits up and looks to the roof access door. Shinso-kun? Izuku mumbles. Huh. Shinso looks down to Izuku's pathetic form on the floor. Akatani? What are you doing here? I could ask you the same question. What are you doing here? He asks, standing up from his sitting position. I normally come up here to chill after school. What are you doing? Parkour. Shinso blinks and raises an eyebrow. Parkour. Yep. Izuku says, popping the P. Right then. Shinso then proceeds to sit near the edge of the roof, facing toward the street. So. Well, isn't this awkward? Great going, Izuku. So. Shinso prompts. How was your day today? Shitty. What about yours? He says straight-faced. Hey, it was decent. What made your day shitty? Is people in general, the norm. Shinso says, rubbing at his eyes that have dark purple eye bags showing. The air between them became somewhat awkward again. Izuku barely even knows Shinso, though he can't help but feel a bit worried for him. How Izuku even remembered his name is something shocking already. Sorry for bumping into you a while ago. Izuku says hesitantly. You're still on about that? I said it's fine. Shinso said, turning to look at Izuku. Izuku shrugs. Still sorry. Whatever. Now, Izuku hasn't spoken to anyone his age for a while, and if he did, they either gave pity or they didn't. So what do people normally talk about? Something common, right? Maybe. Shinso-kun? Drop the honorifics, it's weird. Shinso says. Right. But anyways, what do you want to be when you're older? Izuku asks. That's a pretty normal question, right? Shinso has a look of conflict in his eyes. I want to be a hero. Izuku perks up, a grin on his face. Really? Yeah, got a problem with it? Shinso asks defensively. No, I think it's amazing. To be honest, I want to be a hero too. Shinso raises an eyebrow. Really? Yep. That's cool, I guess. Is that why you're doing parkour, which I think is illegal? Yep. Izuku beams. Shinso chuckles. You're weird. Not the first time I heard that. You're pretty weird yourself. Izuku counters. Touché. So why do you want to be a hero? Izuku questions. Spite mostly. But I want to be a hero to save people, anyone no matter their quirk or beliefs. You know. Izuku blinks. Yeah, he whispers. Are you alright? What? No yet. Fine. It's just very admirable, Shinso. Izuku says, a small smile on his face. Right. Shinso says hesitantly. Why do you want to be a hero? Kind of the same as you. Spite, and so I can save everyone with a smile. That my presence alone will put people at ease. You know. That's nice. They sit in silence once more, but instead of it being awkward, it's a comfortable silence. I think I should head home now. It was really nice seeing you, Shinso. Izuku exclaims, standing up and facing Shinso, who is currently sitting on the roof working on some papers. It was. Nice to see you too, Akatani. Bye. Hopefully I'll see you again. Izuku says, opening the roof access door. Bye. Shinso replied as the door closed. Hawks, wait up. Mirko yells after him. Right now, Hawks is flying over buildings with ease, with Mirko hopping over alleys and using her speed to catch up to him. It was the night after the briefing from the commission. Both of them decided to patrol that night to look for the missing children. Hey, I said wait up, Birdbrain. Hawks came to a sudden stop in the air, flapping his wings to stay afloat, turning around to face Mirko. What is it, Mirko? He asks, descending to the roof she's standing on to stand next to her. We need a plan. We can't just look around blindly, you know? No matter how fast you are, you need to have a well-thought-out plan, she says, pointing a finger to his chest. Hawks swipes it away. I've got a plan. Oh yeah? And what would that be? Mirko raises an eyebrow. To look around? Hawks replies hesitantly. You don't sound so sure about that. I don't have a plan. Hawks nervously chuckles. Mirko shakes her head. This way of thinking is stupid. You can't just rush into things, so let me tell you my plan. She smirks. She crosses her arms while Hawks puts his hands in his pockets. We should each scope out the areas where the children were taken. Look for any clues or anything suspicious. Since they're in different areas, I'll check out Mizudafu while you check out Hosu. It'll be quicker that way. Hawks nods determinedly. Got it? Thanks. And with that, Hawks flies off to the direction of Hosu while Mirko turns the other way to Mizudafu. It takes a while, but Mirko finally makes it to Aiko's local area. She patrols by parkouring from roof to roof, her white hair flowing in the wind. She occasionally stops between buildings, looking. Looking for what? Anything really. Something to connect Aiko and where she went. She's been out for hours now, still no sign that Aiko has been around in a while. It frustrates her. Why was she only told about this now anyways? Haven't they gone missing for around a month now, maybe less? That seems like enough time for someone to harm them. They might not even be alive at this time. Such horrible timing for heroes to be on the case. Just as Mirko was about to call it a night and head back to the office, she spotted something moving in the alley below her. Keeping her guard up, she cautiously jumps down into the alley, her feet absorbing the jump. She hears a high-pitched squeak from her right. She turns and comes face to face with a boy with goggles that she can even see herself in, a mask and dark clothing. Who are you? She asks, not threatened at all by the smaller figure. He looks more like a cosplayer than anything. I'm nobody. Nobody? Right. Mirko crosses her arms disbelievingly. You look like a kid. What are you doing out this late? Just on a walk. Yeah. The boy, he's definitely a boy, nods. Do your parents know you're out? The boy snorts but tries to cover it up with a cough. No, they don't know. I have to go now. It was nice seeing you, Ms. Mirko, sir. Mirko huffs a laugh at that. Right, kid? Well, come hop with me, I can take you back to your place. The boy is silent for a moment. No need, thank you. You sure, kid? I don't mind. I'm sure, thank you though. Have a nice night, Ms. Mirko. Just Mirko's fine, don't bother with Mrs. or Sirs. The boy nods then walks out of the alley. Mirko stares at him until he finally turns to the main street. It wouldn't hurt to check up on the kid, what parent lets their children out at night, and the fact they don't even know. After a few seconds, Mirko hops to the roof and tracks the boy. Things were going smoothly until the boy turned to another alley, making himself known again by appearing on the roof across from her. The boy makes his way to the edge. Mirko feels her heart stutter. So young? Hey kid, step away from the edge. She voiced, loudly but not loud enough to startle him. Either way, the kid jumps in place and faces Mirko so fast she thinks he might have gotten whiplash. Mirko? What are you? He trailed off. We can talk about this. Just. Mirko jumps to his roof. Come here. Step away, please. She didn't think this would happen. This wasn't the first time she talked someone down, though someone so young. The boy shakes his head. No. Come on, kid. Please? Tell me what's up. Why do you feel the need to do this? Mirko asks, slowly walking toward him. I'm not suicidal if that's what you're thinking. What's your name? Nobody. The boy replies. That's your name? She asks. The boy shakes his head. Not giving you it. That's fine. Could you make your way over here? It won't work. It was nice meeting you, Mirko. And with that, the boy tilts forward, and in a desperate moment to catch him, Mirko rushes forward with a hand outstretched. She was too late. That was close. He had no idea Mirko was patrolling. She isn't normally in another district, isn't she? It is a good thing he rewound. If he didn't, who knows what would have happened. Plus, he just started going on the road to becoming a vigilante. He doesn't need to be caught so soon. When he rewound, he made sure to be out of the area Mirko found him in. He can't always use his quirk to get out of sticky situations. What if he does it too much and it kills him off for good? It's not like he's going to test it, he actually values his life. Somewhat. That's beside the point. The point is that he is now home, in bed, trying to sleep. He doesn't know what he'll do the next day. He doesn't have to go to work until Wednesday. He'll think about it tomorrow. Hawks, wait up. Mirko yells after him. Right now, Hawks is flying over buildings with ease, with Mirko hopping over alleys and using her speed to catch up to him. But that isn't right. She's done this already, hasn't she? Hawks. I said wait. Mirko shouts over the wind, speeding up to catch him. He stops and meets Mirko on a rooftop. He raises an eyebrow. What is it, Mirko? Aren't you getting some sense of déjà vu or something? Because I'm sure we've done this already. Mirko says, tapping her foot. No? Are you all right? What? No, I'm fine obviously. It was just a question. Mirko turns away, crossing her arms. Right. So, now do we just look about or? Hawks says hesitantly. Idiot. You check out Hosu, look for anything, I'll see Mizudafu because it's quicker. Got it? Yes, sir. He salutes and flies off. Mirko sighs as she turns in the direction of Mizudafu. What does she remember? She was looking for any clues regarding Aiko, then she encountered a weird child who ended up jumping. He jumped. Mirko speeds through the familiar streets and rushes to where she saw the boy. He wasn't there, which is a good thing. Maybe? Or is this the wrong street? She doesn't know. Any memory of the child was quickly fading. Why was that happening? Was it a villain? Her head hurts, things seem like they're spinning and she's feeling nauseous. The pain is fading away now, things are seeming more stable as the minutes go by as well as her memory of the child she encountered. Kyudai, how is Nomu coming along? All for One asks, hooked up on wires and wires to help him breathe. It's still in its early stages. It won't be until a few years. Until it'll be ready, master. Kyudai replies, checking something on his checklist while inspecting its glass case. Can't it go any quicker? You knew how to make Kurogyri, didn't you? And that took how long? 5 or so years. This is a shorter limit, it'll most likely be done in 2 or 3 years if things go smoothly. He explains, walking to the other case. That's less than ideal, though I see where you're coming from. I thank you for your hard work. Thank you, master. It was the next day for Izuku. The sun was rising high, the skies were blue with very few clouds. Overall, it seemed like he may have actually had a good day. Of course, he was wrong. When does he ever have a good day anyway? The situation he's in isn't really a good situation, you know? Right now he's being held hostage. It wasn't his intention to, it just happened. He was walking by a store he had no interest whatsoever in, when the door exploded and the thugs ran out holding bags of cash. They ran by him, snatched him by his collar and aimed a knife to his head. The person holding him still was tall and muscular, while his buddies ran towards their transportation van. "Come near me and he gets it," he bellows, whilst yanking Izuku harshly. What to do? If he dies, he can always come back, right? He needs to disarm the man and wait for authorities to arrive. By now someone must have called them. Just as he was about to reach for the knife, still firmly placed at the side of his head, something gray shot out at it, wrapping the knife in its bindings and rendering the man defenseless. The gray scarf, Izuku noticed, wrapped around his middle and brought him to the side as the muscular man was tied up. There's only one person Izuku knows who can do that. Eraserhead. Eraserhead is here. Looking around, Izuku notices a crowd around the area. Some people record, some don't. Which isn't a good thing either because Eraserhead is an underground hero. He doesn't need publicity, that just ruins the whole anonymous hero idea. He must have been passing by, he definitely doesn't work during the day. Eraserhead comes forward and knocks the guy out swiftly, locking him in cuffs and waiting for the police to arrive. Izuku isn't sure what he's supposed to do, just stay here or leave and act like nothing happened. It'll probably be safer to leave now. So that's what he does. Izuku weaves through the crowd that slowly disbands back to their day. Izuku hears sirens pulling up the street, so the man and his group are taken care of. Most likely. He was about to turn the corner when a hand landed on his shoulder. Flinching at the contact, Izuku spun around. "Are you all right, kid?" asked Eraserhead, removing his hand from Izuku's shoulder. I'm fine. Totally good, yep." Izuku's sweat dropped, scratching the back of his neck. Eraserhead grunted, looking into Izuku's green eyes. Beginning to feel awkward, Izuku shuffles on his feet. Now, he feels as if he's being analyzed, broken down and inspected in every corner. "You need to come with me for your statement," he says, finally breaking eye contact and reaching into his pocket, pulling out a hero license. Handing it to Izuku, he reads the card. It has the basics, his hero name, his card number and an image of him in the corner. It lacks anything to actually do with Eraserhead, like his civilian name, age and other important things. Okay? Yeah. Sure. Izuku agrees. But he doesn't know, though it would be suspicious if he didn't go, wouldn't it? Right. "Come with me then." Eraserhead sighs, turning on his heel, making sure Izuku is following him and leading him to a police car. Izuku gets in the back of the car while Eraserhead he's in the passenger seat, the cop already ready to go. In 10 minutes or so, they arrive at the station. Izuku exits the car after Eraserhead does, following him through the halls and into an office area. He sits down at the offered chair in front of a desk. The desk is quite messy, files stored on a file rack in the corner, a large computer in the middle of the desk with a keyboard and mouse. There's a calendar on the desk, it's just before spring. March 17th. There's a stapler and a pot full of pencils and there's a picture of a man in a trench coat and another woman standing next to him. He looks familiar. Trench coat, black eyes, black hair, Izuku swears he has seen him before. Looking on the desk for another minute, he eyes a nameplate on the edge of the desk. Det? Tsukachi. That's why the man in the picture looked so familiar. He's met him before, way more than one time. He was most likely on the case to find him, before he was broadcasted as dead on the news. Izuku decides to stop snooping and settles on looking at the floor. There's nobody at the desk right now, and Eraserhead left the room. Most likely getting Tsukachi here. Izuku waited another 5 minutes when the door opened. Looking up, Izuku makes eye contact with Tsukachi and Eraserhead. "Sorry for the wait." Tsukachi smiles sheepishly. "No. It's all right. It wasn't that long anyways." Izuku smiles back. Tsukachi nods and settles himself on the desk chair. "I thank you for your patience. I am Detective Tsukachi, nice to meet you." He greets, taking out a flip notepad. "Let's start off with something easy," Tsukachi says as Eraserhead takes a seat. Izuku nods, feeling nervous. "What's your name? And isn't that the question of the year?" He knows Tsukachi has a truth quirk. If he says what he's going by, would that come as a lie? He knows his legal name is Izuku Midoriya, though they can't know that. He's dead. To them anyway. Though it's not technically a lie if he says his alias, it's still his name, isn't it? Akatani Mikumo. He settles on. Tsukachi nods. Thank you, Akatani. Right, how old are you? I am 11. He replies easily. Right. Can you tell me your side of the story before you were held hostage, during and after? He asks, a softer tone in his voice. Yeah. So I was walking by the store, the muscled dude held me and pointed a knife to my head while his buddies ran off. I was trying to find a way out of it when Eraserhead here took care of that. I didn't really know what to do then, so I thought I could just leave, you know? I was walking away when Eraserhead told me to go with him for the statement. Izuku explains. Tsukachi nods and finishes writing in his notepad. Thank you for your time. Do you have someone at home who I can call? No. I can go on my own, thank you Tsukachi-san, Izuku says, standing from his seat. He doesn't want to stay any longer. Are you sure? There must be somebody, no? He asks, also standing from his seat. No, sorry. I'd really like to go now. If that's all. Tsukachi looks unsure. His eyebrows are furrowed as he stares at Izuku. Yeah. You can go. Eraserhead says as Izuku startles. He forgot he was there. Thank you. He says, and heads out of the station, passing cops and arrested criminals alike in the hallways. Izuku makes it out of the building, unaware that Tsukachi and Eraserhead are staring right at him. Shota doesn't know what to think. Something about Akatani just gives him a sense of déjà vu. Like he's met him somewhere before. His green eyes look so much like Midoriya's. The rounded cheeks and freckles. They were both so similar. Maybe it was nothing. He has been invested in Midoriya's case for quite a while. All the leads he got ended up with the conclusion that Midoriya was no longer alive. Even if he was, which he highly doubts, he would have been found by now. Also the fact Akatani denied that there was anyone to call for him. That itself was concerning. He can tell Tsukachi thought the same. That went. Tsukachi trails off. Like sheet. Shota raises an eyebrow, side-eyeing the detective. Yep, exactly that. Though, I feel like I've seen him somewhere before. Tsukachi says, eyebrows pinched together as he continues staring where Akatani turned the corner. Honestly, I feel the same way. He looks so much like Midoriya. Doesn't he? Yeah. I guess you're right. Though that can't be possible, Midoriya. Well. Shota didn't need the detective to finish his sentence to get what he was saying. Also, him avoiding any guardian contact isn't sitting right with me. You should look into him. If nothing comes up, fine. But it would be good to check in. Shota suggests, taking a sip of the coffee he got before they interrogated Akatani. That would be for the best. I'll see you around, Eraser. Shota gives him an acknowledging hum, giving a lazy wave to the detective as he leaves the station. He doesn't know what to think about the situation. He's already failed Midoriya then, he won't fail Akatani now. Izuku was just on patrol. Nothing out of the ordinary, just jumping over alleys and knocking out criminals every now and then. That was until Izuku came across a familiar bunny hero. What is Mirko doing here? She doesn't normally patrol around Mizudafu. She first came around 4 days ago if he remembers correctly. It's no bother really, she can patrol here if she wants to, though it'll be a tad harder for Izuku to avoid her as Mirko is dead set on patrol where he does. Sticking to the shadows of stinking alleys and trying his best to stay hidden, it doesn't exactly work out. Mirko is a full-fledged hero after all, of course, she could find him. Just his luck. Mirko jumps into the alleyway and looks at Izuku. Hey, what are you doing? She asks, leaning her weight onto one leg and crossing her arms. Nothing. Izuku shrugs. Nothing. Mirko repeats, huffing a laugh. I like you. What's your name? I'm nobody, Izuku replies instantly without a second thought. At the name Mirko looks at Izuku with a frown. Nobody? Have we met before? Mirko asks, unknown to Izuku's spike of panic. Does she know? How does she know? Izuku swears he rewinded, didn't he? I don't know. Right, I've got to go now. Bye. And with that, Izuku scurries off down the alley, parkouring through the jungle of concrete and buildings. He hears Mirko following him close behind, yelling at him to get back. Izuku hasn't even done anything to warrant her chasing him. Well, he can understand running could be considered suspicious, and avoiding her questions. But that isn't enough to actually get her to chase him. What the hell? Wait, I just want to talk. We can sort this out. Mirko huffs between breaths, slowly catching up to a slowing Izuku. Izuku doesn't reply, though he is now hyper-aware of how much he's slowing down the more he runs. His heart slams into his chest as he takes larger breaths. Izuku doesn't look at where he's stepping, slipping on some trash on the ground and falling onto his back. Mirko catches up, placing her hands on her knees, panting. Geez, you run fast. Taking a deeper breath, she stands up straighter and stares at Izuku, who is now sitting up on the floor. We can talk. About this? Izuku winces. It's like he's been caught with a hand in a cookie jar. Mirko chuckles and raises an eyebrow. Yeah, guess we can. What was that about? Pointing a thumb behind her from over her shoulder. And like I said, it was nothing. Then why'd you run? Either way you would have followed me. Whatever. But that definitely wasn't nothing. You're guilty about something, aren't you? She guesses, smirking down at Izuku, who is now making an attempt to stand. It's not really guilt though. No. Nope. He says, popping the pea. Then why won't you talk to me? Izuku blinks at her. Isn't it obvious? It's Izuku's turn to raise his eyebrow. No? Geez, just tell me already. What have you got to hide, huh? I've got nothing to hide. Good night, Mirko. Mirko heaves a sigh. Whatever. If I find you here again, we're definitely talking. Don't follow me. And with that, Izuku walks out of the alley, Mirko staring with an unknown look in her eyes. Izuku can feel her gaze on him as he turns the corner to walk on the pavement in the streets of Misville. It's actually quite a calming walk, stars rising in the sky blinking down on Earth. The air is cold and refreshing, and there is almost nobody out. Apart from the occasional drunk he passes by, not without checking them if they're passed out, and makes it home. It's been a long day, he's tired and just wants to go to sleep. If he was a little more awake, he'd notice the bunny heroes spying on Izuku from the roofs, watching him enter his home. Izuku doesn't think it's worth resetting. It's too much of a bother and it's late already. He honestly just wants to go to sleep. He enters his house, closes the door and heads straight upstairs to his bedroom to get some shut-eye. He doesn't change out of his sweaty clothes, just wanting to be done with the day already. Plus, is it really a bad thing that Mirko knows he exists? Also on that note, how did she remember him? He is pretty sure he reset after meeting her the first time. Well, she never really knew him if her questions were anything to go by. Have we met before? She asked. Not, we have met before. Plus, Mirko doesn't patrol around here normally. She'll leave soon to go back to her office. He has nothing to worry about. He doesn't know why he wants him to check his old house. That building is nearly 100 years old now, adding on to the fact that there should be nothing connecting him from there. Kyudai is driving in the back seat of a taxi, just entering Mizudafu. The building is further in the city, so he still has a long way until he arrives. It's fine though. He'll do anything for his master, even if he does sometimes second-guess his skill. Which is almost never. His master occasionally asks him to check all the old buildings he lived in, just in case, he said. He hasn't been to this particular building in all his years of working with him. He didn't even know about it. He's nearing the house by now. Whatever, it's just in case. Izuku woke up to a door opening. Immediately on high alert, Izuku slowly sits up, making as little noise as possible. He's been here for a good few months. He knows sounds are normal and aren't. That was not. Walking slowly to the bedroom door, he carefully opens the door and looks down into the hall. The door which he closed the night before was now wide open. Creeping to the door, he looks inside. In the room, he sees a short man with a bushy mustache who is completely bald. The man in question was looking at a board that he set up a while ago. It was where most crime is now and where he should patrol, who he should avoid. Looking what the man is wearing, he's wearing a long, white coat that looks to be what doctors normally wear. He has peculiar goggles on his forehead, the lens borders in the shape of a gear. There's something in his pocket that he can't identify, though it's probably somewhat heavy as it's dragging down his coat. Sir? Izuku hesitantly says. He knows he can always reset if things go south. He needs to know what that man is doing here when he got here. What? The man whispers, turning his head to the side to face Izuku. Izuku knows who this is. This is Dr. Ujiko, the man who diagnosed him as quirkless. What are you doing here? Ujiko asks, placing his hand in the pocket that has the item. Me? What are you doing here? Izuku says, confused. That doesn't matter. You shouldn't be here. He says, lifting the item out of his pocket, which he now knows is a gun, and pointing it straight at his head. What are you doing here and what do you know? What's going on? Know what? Know about what? He asks, raising his hands in the air. You know, doesn't matter, you won't live any longer to tell the tale. There's no sound indicating he shot, though Izuku feels a burning pain in his forehead. Placing a hand on the wound, he hissed in pain. Pathetic. Izuku jumps out of his bed, looking around frantically for a bag. He won't be able to get through him, he isn't skilled enough to go against a gun and win. He doesn't have time for that. Hastily packing clothing in his battered yellow backpack, getting anything important to him. He opens the dresser and sees the old letter he opened a while ago. He decides to take that too. Changing into his vigilante outfit, Izuku jumps out the window onto the fire escape and up the roof just as the door opens on the other side. Jumping over roofs in the daylight isn't great for being sneaky and not noticed, so after a few buildings he goes down onto street level and tries to fit in as casually as possible. It seems to be working so far as nobody is giving him a second glance. Well, now is probably the time to think about what the F just happened. So his old doctor apparently knew something about that house and got defensive and shot him. That in itself is confusing to him. Why was he there anyway? Was something left behind that could? The letter. The letter is the only explanation he has. He knows his doctor isn't related to this Shigaraki. He's over 100 years old now and most likely dead. Could be something else. But now because of that, he needs to find a new place to stay. Probably somewhere that still has electricity. He has the whole day to find something. He'll be fine. Maybe. When Kyudai enters the building, he isn't expecting much. Though during his inspection, he finds things that lead him to believe someone was living here before he got there. To prove the point, there is a board with pins and strings with labels in a coded language he doesn't understand. The board holds a map of the local area, yellow strings, white strings and red strings all lead in different directions. Strange, he believes. While looking further into the house, he comes across a bedroom that is a full-blown mess. Bed sheets were scrawled across the flooring, open drawers, and ripped and dirty clothes were discarded on the wooden floors. It's a wreck. If that doesn't prove his point, he doesn't know what will. He'll have to bring this up with his master. What? All for One asks, looking directly into the doctor's direction even without eyes. I believe there has been someone living in that house, sir. Did you find anything there? Like letters or? He trails off. None. Though there was this board with strings attached. Maybe that could be useful? Suggested Kyudai. All for One looks thoughtful. Once it seems like he reached a conclusion, he calls for Kurojairi. Yes, sir. Kurojairi asks with a bow. Take Kyudai here to my old building and take back the board, please. I have some plans. Right away, sir. Kurojairi opens a portal obediently, and the doctor walks through it and backs out with the board. All for One grins. Sorry, I really can't finish this off. I really don't like where the story is headed and I think it's pretty boring and basic. I apologize for this, but I honestly can't be bothered anymore. I started chapter 21 if you guys would like me to post what I got. I hope you understand. I might make something else though that I'm motivated to make. Thank you for reading and I apologize for any inconvenience. From that point when Izuku got forced to leave his place because the doctor was there, he was supposed to be on patrol when Kurojairi made a portal in front of him, as All for One got his patrol route from the board. He would have tried to stop before going in the portal, but he didn't stop in time, making his way through the portal into the bar. Shigaraki would have tried to convince Izuku to join his league, and when Shigaraki introduces himself, Izuku would have recognized that name from the letter, but he doesn't actually remember where he heard it from, so he says nothing about it. So basically after that and getting all the information he needs, he denies joining and he goes back onto the roof he was on before. He carries on patrol and he bumps into Aizawa on the way. They have a conversation about what happened and Aizawa tells him to be careful and be safe and stuff. He doesn't bother trying to capture Izuku. They go their own ways, and Izuku goes to the place where he's camping out currently, so like some random abandoned building again. The next day goes on and Izuku tries his best to try to figure out what that was all about the day before. The next time on patrol, he saves this dude from being shot a few times after dying himself from it, not knowing that Mirko was watching the whole time. When he successfully saves the guy on his third try, Mirko makes herself known and tries to spark conversation with him, mostly trying to get information out of him, and who he is and stuff, the basics. The remembering thing didn't affect her this time, as what I was thinking is that sometimes it happens to people while sometimes it doesn't. Because if it happened every single time, I thought it would just seem suspicious or disorienting on the person who's affected. Anyways, after that interaction, the next week goes off with him just doing the same patrols and stuff, and getting stronger for a 12-year-old. He's living in the new abandoned building and he suddenly remembers what he took from the house. He opens his back and takes out the letter, he reads it and reads the signed note, specifically looking at the Shigaraki at the end. That's where he remembered hearing that name. When he appeared in the league space a week ago, the first thing he asked was where he was. They told him, in Kamino, but not the exact location. He ends up going to Kamino to see if the offer is still up to join, as he could infiltrate them and potentially find out if Shigaraki is related to Yoichi in any way. He ends up getting a train to Kamino and looks about to see if there's anywhere familiar to where he was before. Anyway, he ends up being found by Jiren and taken to the LOV. He convinces them that he changed his mind and that he'll join them. They're still suspicious of him but accept him anyway. Very short conclusion cause this went on for so long. So after that, Izuku would have found the newly experimented children. They're not yet at the Noma phase as they were just recently kidnapped, and he calls Mirko cause through that time they got closer and then the Lav is arrested. If I felt like writing more at the time, I would have included him going to UA and saving Eri, but you guys can imagine that. Sorry this was delayed, and I hope you guys understand.